Should be. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can I have a roll call?
Yeah. Director Aguilar?
Here.
Dr. Topliff?
Here.
Dr. Brandt is absent. Director Freeman?
Here.
Dr. Craig is absent. Director Deschler, I think she says coming late, and Director Schultz.
Here.
All right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders past, present, and future who call this place Anisquayo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship, support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Now I'd like to move on to the consent agenda. Do any directors want to pull any items from the consent agenda or make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Topliff. Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Freeman. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? I see none. All right, I'd like to have a roll call vote.
Director Aguilar?
Yes.
Director Topliff?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Director Schultz?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes 4-0-0-3. Is that when we say the abstention? 4-0-0-3. Now I'd like to move on to the public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Directors that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided by law. Yes.
Well, first of all, sorry for missing the last meeting. I had to explain to Jay and Carrie had a raging attack of allergies. Benadryl in the middle of the day. I'm going to start by saying that I'm a little disappointed today. It's a project I've been working with Ivy Beautiful, Jenna, on removal of the abandoned bicycles, and that was thwarted today. I also had the honor and pleasure of meeting Gary Smart from Public Works. Great guy, great, fantastic dude. And the reason I was given for the refusal to have the bikes removed was based on two individuals. One is a known hoarder, and the other one is a known prolific bicycle thief. They're using, and before anybody says, how do you know that? I go, because I have them on video stealing, trying to steal bicycles from the apartment complex I live in. I caught them. So basically, we have two individuals with illegally acquired bicycles, illegally storing them in an illegal manner in public bike racks. And, you know, it was feared that if we removed certain bicycles, that would be a discriminatory act. And I'm like, the only discriminatory act that's being played out is against the community of Isla Vista by two select individuals taking up bicycle racks and creating an eyesore and a public nuisance. And that's not right. It's not correct. You can't have it. This is, sadly enough, this is the kind of thing, and I'm not saying it's the case with me, but in talking with certain business owners in the area who were expecting those bicycles to be cleared. This is the kind of thing that breeds and sows the seeds of disdain and distrust or mistrust towards county government. I can't change what other people feel. I can't do that. I can only state the facts as they are. But the thing is that, you know, you've reached the tipping point now where some people are talking about taking matters into their own hands. And that's not what you want either. That's vigilantism. We can't have that. We're a society of laws. With that said, you know, bicycles that were tagged, all the bicycles were tagged, this is true, but there are bicycles that are apparently abandoned there that need to go right now, and especially this is the perfect time when to do because there's nobody in town. Those bicycles, they're dismantled, they're just bare bones, frames, few parts laying around. And they're dangerous. And they also attract more elements to the community that are here to steal things from the bike racks. Those bicycles haven't been there for hours. They haven't been there for days. They haven't been there for weeks or months. They've been there for years. I've got documented proof of these bicycles going back to 10 years. Some of these bikes have been there for 10 years. I'm not kidding. I have documented proof of this. So like I said, I'm a little disappointed, but to my understanding, it has been rescheduled till until summer to do the removal. You know, the bicycle removal thing is the code on there says 48 hours, and then they're subject to impoundment. We're talking some bikes that have been there for 10 years. They need to go away. And like I said, I appreciate Jenna's efforts and Gary Smart to come out and do that and everything. But the decision to not remove them this week, I think, is a big mistake personally. And that's just my feeling on it. So just want to share that with you all.
Thank you for those comments. Is there any, like to make a public comment?
It's not for public, he can't make a.
I'm
public
not, I'm
comment.
not asking to make a public comment. I was hoping.
I'll just step in
I was
as the
queuing-
attorney here.
Yeah, I was queuing to after the public comment, sorry, in order to make like a staff internal comment.
Okay, like as a part of the public comment
As
period, you want
response
to
to public
respond?
comment, as a
Okay,
response, yeah.
please go ahead.
Is it possible we could have some kind of like a agenda item to discuss the bicycle issue? It's come before public comment a few times now, and I actually have comments that I would like to make on that subject as well. So I don't know if that's something that we could discuss as part of our beautification project or POW or something, but
Sure,
Yeah,
it's on our list.
I think that's a good idea. Yes,
Yeah, so I'm here for another item, but I do want to speak publicly about it. And I have been doing a lot of research about the IVCSD book ban, and I've been doing a lot of research about the Goleta Library. And my personal stance is I'm hopeful that we can think bigger in terms of what, how we can maximize dollars for the IVCSD Consortium. And so for me, I've already sent a link to a California state grant for libraries and hope that we can build an Isla Vista branch. I know that was something that was brought up a while ago. I want to bring it back to the table just because I'm hearing that the city of Goleta wants to expand where the book ban goes. And I just want to say, sure, city of Goleta, take the book ban. Let's actually get Isla Vista branch. And so we've talked to the Office of Supervisor Caps. We've talked to Senator Lamone's office, who is on board to review whatever grant and help find funding. We talked to the city of Goleta, who is amenable to having a conversation about it. And I'm hopeful that we can also talk with IVCSD to see what we can do, because I think it's about time. I think we have the space. I think everything's kind of lining up. I know that libraries, especially regionally, there's tension there and there's different, different thoughts of what should be done, but I think that can happen in tandem to having a branch here. And so I hope that all of us can get together and get in a room and see what's best and what can be done.
ask a clarifying question.
yes, yeah.
When you say a branch, do you mean a branch of an existing library, or do you mean our own Isla Vista library? That
So
would not be a branch.
we would have to see the feasibility of it. I know that a branch is probably more affordable than an actual municipal library. Some municipal libraries are pretty expensive. And so I think it's worth having a conversation about what is feasible to have an actual physical location.
I'd like to make a request that for public comment, that people identify themselves by name. Thank you.
All right. we'll
I just
follow
think
up.
it's a good practice.
I'll try. I need to remember that individually as the-
People hear a voice, but I don't know if people see him.
Yeah,
I'm
me
happy
too.
to be transparent. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm wearing my badge. Jordan Killebrew. I'm supervisor Laura Caps for District 2, her district representative for IVCSD, and her comms director.
Thank you.
Do I have to identify
Yeah.
myself?
Yeah, please go
Henry
ahead.
Soria, 35-year resident of Isla Vista.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments. I know that we are kind of actively looking and trying to plan that meeting, so thanks for touching on that. Do any other members of the public have comments they wish to share? Yes. Oh, and could you please tell us your name and who you are?
Yeah, I'm Lieutenant Thunder Striker. Wow. I just had a pretty creepy day, so I don't have everything written down. I was gonna talk about, let's see, stuff that I gave to the IVCSD students who I guess aren't here. When I had the appointment with John, that went bad. I saw more activity here that day than I'd previously seen. The side room on the community services always looked like AmeriCorps. I was talking to some guy out there once. Before that, it was just probably John who told me that they trained community service officers. And then the day that I got here, when apparently the community service person that I was dealing with got promoted, this security guard is still here. When he was over there, like, what are you effing doing writing notes? You know, after I talked to them and like, oh, I've been on studies for 4 years. And so, yeah, and then I was over here that day at 12 and I'm talking to, I think this person about the Ivy Beautiful, and maybe she was in that room saying, oh, you're not even supposed to be here. Went around the corner, the UCPD shows up. They didn't talk to me. They went over to two guys in green. So John comes in and he's like, well, like 12, 14, I didn't have these list 2 appointments or something. I don't even know. We're talking with the guy who was head of security, and he was with me on the first day I made comments at the supervisors. And so he was out there. And so it's like, well, I mean, I don't even know where to go with this because after the day I had or everything is going on around here. I wasn't even sure if I was going to make public comments. I was like, well, I was going to follow up with these students, and well, you know, of course, they're not here. So it's like, well, can I even go on to UCPD property and talk with the cops? And I made that request like a long time ago, and so it's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling like maybe like up until now, you know, is like the first thing I gave was like how songs related to Lord. I'm probably close to my 4 minutes, but and so like somebody could, oh yeah, you know, I'm in this music industry, bad thing. And there's like I come in and I say, well, I just talked to the supervisors and I made a notes that I gave to the Commission for Women, and then somebody announces her candidacy for presidency from South Carolina. I don't know if it happens all the time. And it's like, well, okay, I'm going to be a vice president if I'm working for, you know, but it's like, oh, I'm just going to get out of here. You can have the regulars that probably stopped showing up when I first got here. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Do any other members of the public wish to speak? See none. I'd like to move on to our discussion action items. So item 4.1 are housing resources and rights overview.
Great. So we have 2 presenters here to present on housing resources and rights. The first presenter is on Zoom and he is on a time sensitive basis. So it's Alex Entrikin from the Legal Aid Foundation. So we're going to go to him first. He's going to present and be available for questions, and then we'll go into.
Do we want to do like an overview first of the issue?
Sure. Yes.
I think that might be nice.
Yes, so there's been an issue. It's just the next item too, that's why. But the next,
Okay.
there is a mass eviction notice that's been given to 234 units in Isla Vista at CVC and Sweeps. And so we're having this item as information for people who might need information about housing resources and rights. It's all you, Alex.
Is it my time? Okay. Thank you. As Jonathan mentioned, I'm the supervising attorney for housing at the Legal Aid Foundation in the Santa Barbara office, and a member of the Santa Barbara Tenants Union. This is a number of notices that is on a scale that is fairly unimaginable. For some context, the Sergeant Shriver grant, which is a right to counsel grant that I worked under in North County, in Lompoc and Santa Maria, targets 160 cases per year. This is looking like it will be around 240 or 250. So it's something that the Legal Aid Foundation at one time is ill-equipped, and I believe any law firm would be fairly ill-equipped to deal with. We have seen a few of the tenants. I was there on Saturday with the tenants union, and we have been in touch with a variety of resources, law firm out of Northern California named HERA and CRLA and their partnership with HERA. I'm aware that there's the IVTU Associated Students Legal Resource Center. For now, the resources available, I will be there every Saturday with the tenants for the foreseeable future, trying to give advice, information. We did that last week. We'll keep doing it. I might leave it open for question. I do have one comment that I'm making kind of repeatedly. These are notices of termination of tenancy. These are not evictions. There's a crucial legal difference. A notice of termination of tenancy, the tenant stays over past the end of that, can turn into an eviction. We know that some of these notices are timed to the end of leases, for example. So some of these tenants, very sadly, moved in less than a month or 2 months ago. So they have rights to remain even on the plain face of the notice. So we're trying to educate people that, for example, if you have a notice terminating your tenancy in 2024, you do not need to move out now. So we're trying to provide sort of basic information to tenants, and to the extent that political bodies and people talking to the press can echo the reality that these are notices of termination, that the tenants have not yet been evicted, that can help. And that they can seek advice, continue paying their rent, and get information on how they can navigate this on an individual basis. We are very scared that this is happening on such a mass scale, but at the same time, it's very scary to see tenants who are agreeing. I think this was in the Independent article, someone who agreed to a place where their rent was $4,000 a month. And they may or may not have had to leave, especially may or may not have had to leave last week. So we're trying to get out there every Saturday. I'll be there, and our office is giving advice to people. We're prioritizing legal aid, the most vulnerable, people on Section 8, the disabled, the elderly. That's our mission. But right now, we are in the middle of a flood of evictions outside of this. So we're providing brief advice and counsel, but we will be there for those that are within our mission once there are actual eviction cases to defend. So that's what we do.
All right, thank you, Alex. While you're still here, do any directors have questions for Alex? I know that he has a shorter timeline right now. Director Deschler.
Yes, so I just want to, such an important point that you made about tenancy and evictions. So I just want to be clear, were there any eviction notices, or were all the notices these notices of termination and regarding to the tenancy?
So an eviction notice is something that can only come after a court order. So the timeline goes notice of termination of tenancy. If it's valid and the court enforces it, then the court issues something called a writ. That writ can be given to the sheriff, and the sheriff is the only legal person who can post an eviction notice. When an eviction notice is posted, then the sheriff can come over and forcibly remove the tenant. But all that's been served at this point are hundreds of notices ostensibly terminating tenancies. So some of it's a variety of different timeframes, but we know for a fact that some of them are 60 days, some of them are up to 10 months. So it's a little scary to hear people saying, I'm going to move right now and take the only deal I can find, when it's just a notice of termination of tenancy, without even checking with somebody who knows legal rights or a lawyer to tell them that thing says November of 2023. For example.
Second question. Thank you. A second question I have is that you said that this would be 234 cases. Is it 234 because that's how many notices have been sent out and that's how many units? Or is it the number of people that have come to you and say, I want to be represented by legal aid?
I can't say how many people have come to us. I just know that the number of units is, I believe it's like 240 something. And it's just staggering. Those are not cases. I spoke loosely and I said those are cases in the sense that we represent these people. It would be, if all of them were to go to court on their own timelines, they could become cases, but there are over 240 families who have received these termination notices.
Okay. And then my last question is, when you're present on Saturdays with other entities, are there Spanish resources that you all are providing or that other entities are providing during those Saturday sessions?
The Santa Barbara Tenants Union has live interpretation. We gave out headsets and interpreted everything that was said in English and vice versa.
Thank you.
Director Freeman.
I'm sorry, actually, there's something you just said. I got a little confused by. You mentioned the month November. What was the context of the month November?
Sure. For example, if a termination notice.
That wasn't a concrete thing about the case today. That was just an example. Okay.
Yeah. So we just know for a fact that some of these are not actually 60-day termination notices. They say, go to the end of the lease. And if you signed a lease 2 months ago, or if your lease set to expire and the notice says a certain date, there's just very basic legal rights that people should check before they run and pay double the rent. And we'll also, this is to be determined, but we're planning a Zoom Know Your Rights next week. We will broadly promote this. Legal Aid will be doing an English and Spanish Know Your Rights next week. But yeah, it's just a hypothetical.
Okay. Is that then to say that the notices that were sent out, each of them were different? I was given one of the notices, which said just the one half of the first sentence. Your tenancy in the premises is terminated 60 days from service of this notice or on 6/24/23, whichever is later. Were different notices then for different potential end dates?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would say that's my understanding too.
All right, do any other directors have questions, Alex? Okay, I'd like to open up, or someone raise their hand.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think we have board members that aren't here that are online.
Yeah. Ella, did you have a comment? Did you raise your hand? No. Okay. I'd like to, just for the moment, open it for the public to ask Alex any questions while he's here. Do any members of the public have questions? Henry?
Hi, Alice. My name is Henry Surrey. I've been living in IV for 35 years. And, you know, to my recollection, this is the first mass eviction that I've ever seen to this level, this magnitude. So the tenants are afforded certain rights. And I think that one of the big issues, and as a native Spanish speaker, I can say that one of the biggest issues is definitely the translation of the legalese on these notices that they're receiving. So they're really going to need help on that. Some of the strictly Spanish speaking tenants there. In terms of these notices, so we're hearing, you know, and again, this is kind of being brought up over and over again, termination of tenancy versus eviction. You've defined that very clearly. Thank you for that. The question that I have is, once it reaches the level of where a writ is given by a judge, and then the sheriffs have to come in and stuff like that. You know, what can we do to basically minimize that possibility? I mean, is there any way of getting extension? Can the judge grant an extension on this? I mean, what are the legal recourses across the board? So that's my biggest question, I think.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so prior to the writ, so it goes notice of termination. And then if the owner or the landlord still wants to exercise their rights, that tenancy is terminated, they file a case and they serve it on the tenant. And then the tenant has 5 days to respond in court, and then they get a trial. So at the trial, you can prove many different things, and there are defenses, and you can win, you can lose, and then there are at the stage of a writ being issued, and there are equitable remedies, like for example, if someone has a grave disability and kicking them out in that fast time frame would be a health and safety issue to them, they can go back to court and show evidence of that and request that the judge stay their individual case. There's a wide range of things that can happen in court that can win, lose, extend. People need to know that they must respond in court once they get served. The most important thing, besides understanding your rights, is if you do get to a point where you are served with a lawsuit, seek legal help and respond. We know out of a UCLA study that something like 65% of tenants leave within 30 days because they never respond to the lawsuit. So one of the things we're trying to do is educate people about that, provide some toolkits that they can use for their own responses so that they can, if they have to stay, respond in court, request more time, try to prevail, negotiate for their own well-being. But yeah, that's a very, very good question. I would say the response, once they're served, that is the point where the individual can exercise their rights the most and then get a trial date. But the other aspect of it is there are other legal remedies that I think I've spoken about this on other meetings, but laws can change, and other group lawsuits can be filed, things can be struck down, but from the individual basis, they need to know their basic rights, and they need to know that if they get served with a lawsuit, it will say they have to respond, and they need to do that. And I'm incredibly sympathetic with the legal rights that we have in California for language access, and that is a major problem, not just in this case, but I can say that on Saturday, it was easily 75% of the people who were there were not mono speakers. So it's a major issue. I do know that some folks have contacted the landlord about this, and I know there are going to be ongoing efforts to make sure that the language access rights are honored in that complex and in our county abroad.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Alex while we're still here? All right, I see none. Thank you very much, Alex. I know you have somewhere else to be off to try and help. So thank you for your time. And yeah, we'll hear from you soon. Hopefully, please let our staff know about the possible next meeting you mentioned on Zoom from the Legal Aid Foundation. We'd like to try and share that information when we can.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, Dr. Freeman.
clarify something I said earlier, which when I said that I was sent a notice, I did not mean that I was sent a notice as somebody who lived there. Somebody actually asked me that question. And I mean that I was given a copy of a notice that somebody else who's living there received. And I was reading from the copy of that notice. And I do not live in.
Can I ask a
It's
question?
okay. I wasn't giving you legal advice anyway, so.
I just wanted to ask a question. So I don't know anything about the Zoom meeting, but is this going to be in a place where people can come to participate in Zoom if they don't have the Wi-Fi or computers in their homes to be able to participate in Zoom? And what I'm saying is it going to be do we want to do it at the community center, or is it going to be in a joint location?
Yeah, so we're trying to speak directly to the tenants, as many as can come out to let them make those decisions. We've spoke to them about the possibility of using the CSD building this Saturday. As far as I know, they want to stay on site. We thought the CSD building might be a good thing because we could have some more resources, right? But for now, they've wanted to keep everything on site because it's easier for childcare and easier access for some of the disabled tenants and some of the tenants who might not feel as comfortable with going too far. But we're trying to make that as much of like a self-determined democratic decision among the tenants who want that information. We're trying to spread it broadly. When we get a date for the Know Your Rights, we're certainly trying to set up a spot in the complex so that we can have people who don't have that access to Zoom to view it and ask questions. And that may be the part of the things I'm discussing in my next meeting. It's a very good question.
A last question. So I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you, I'm sorry to be so obnoxious because I know you have to go with it out the door. Is there anything that the IVCSD should be doing that we're not doing as a governmental body in this situation? Who represent these constituents?
I don't know that IVCSD has the this came up on a call on Friday, that I don't think that IVCSD has the ability on its own to make policy that would affect these rights, right? I don't think that they can. I think the only ask we've had from the tenants and some of the organizers is that we be able to use the space, and I think they've found IVCSD to be very accommodating. But I don't know, outside of a policy intervention of some kind, I don't know that, and I don't think IVCSD can do that. But I think just
so we can amplify the issue. We can do those kinds of things. We can call attention to it, but we can't make any policy changes. Okay, thank you.
as far as I understand, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Dang.
All right. Thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, we'll be in contact. So now I'd like to give the floor to Jordan to speak on behalf of the county or on behalf of resources in general.
Thank you. Sorry, I laughed because speak on behalf of the county sounds really.
Yeah, that's too much weight. Too much weight. Yeah,
Is he being seen by people?
The camera will catch.
Okay.
It'll
He
realize
can
he's
come sit
talking.
next to me
Yeah.
if he wants to.
You just want to we'll get into trouble. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for the invitation to come speak to this very important issue, which is our top priority in Supervisor Cap's office. As always, we always want to follow what Isla Vista needs, and so we have been in tandem with Ivy Tenants Union. We've been in tandem with, of course, IVCSD. We've been in tandem with AS Legal, the Legal Aid Foundation, just really trying to see what can be done, what resources can be offered, and how we can help. It is our job to go door to door. So we were kind of embarrassed by how much coverage we got, because that's the job of government, is we're supposed to be there. But when we were there last Wednesday, the stories that we acquired were heartbreaking. Most importantly, most of the doors that answered were Spanish-speaking families. And so we're so grateful to have Daniela Aguirre on our team who was able to talk to these individuals. So Alex mentioned a family that went out and just got a new, another apartment. They went and got this apartment with a security deposit of $800 because it was so cheap, but they're paying $4,000 for a 2-bedroom. And it's unfortunate because, again, these notices were all in English, and they didn't necessarily understand their full extent of their rights. So with all of that heaviness, we were passing out one-page flyers that had information to Ivy Tenants Union, Legal Aid Foundation. There's the UCSB Crisis Finance team that we also gave information to, in addition to just California tenants' rights, and amongst others. It was a quick one-pager, and we're hoping to pass out more resources this upcoming Friday with county social services, who will be going door to door as well to basically ask a few questions to see what additional supports they can get, whether it's food stamps and other services. What can be done? So we have county council is probably annoyed with us, but really we've been emailing them left and right with suggestions from AS Legal, Legal Aid Foundation. We've emailed them information from Santa Barbara City Council, who just tightened their own housing ordinance. We have essentially said what can be done. We've also reached out to county planning and development to see what permits have been pulled for this building. We were surprised, honestly, to get a call back from Scott Steger, who's their Core Spaces external, Senior Vice President of transitions or transactions or something like that. And it was an interesting conversation because Supervisor Cap straight up said, "Can you not do this?" She asked, "Why do you have to do this?" She asked, "Do you understand?" She basically asked, "Do you understand what you're doing to this part of our region?" To which he said, "Why? I'm not really aware of the demographics," which then sparked us to then ask, "Can you please at least provide things in Spanish?" Because in our counties, this is an area, a low socioeconomic area. We also explained that when something like this happens, where there is more affordability in terms of units and rentals, that we don't have that much surplus of extra rentals at this rate, and what that does to the surrounding region. We really told him the truth and did the research that he should have done and his company should have done before acquiring this property. And we were extremely frustrated after, honestly, just being honest, we were extremely frustrated after that call because we wanted more. We asked if there was somebody on the ground who we can meet with. We are still waiting for a meeting with that individual. And we basically asked what resources can be given to these families and individuals. And most of the responses were, "I can be amenable," or "we'll think about that." And so we will probably be calling him again, just because we haven't heard from the regional director. I think his name's Randall. But we will continue to talk to them and hold them accountable for what they're doing to our community. I mentioned planning. We are looking to see, again, what permits have been pulled or if any will be pulled. One question that Supervisor Capps asked was, because he kept on mentioning renovations and severe renovations, and we asked, well, what do you mean by severe renovations? And he noted that he had not had enough assessment done to give that information at this point in time. So with all that said, we will continue to ask those questions because I think we deserve to know, especially for all of these individuals that are being affected. Again, this is our top priority. We will be out there on Friday, again, trying to figure out how to get resources out to individuals and get support for individuals. We are waiting to hear about from county council what can be done. And so they have literally all the information that we've given them. They are working to find that. And yeah, we just feel for these families, and we want to do what's best for them.
All right, thank you. Do any directors have questions for top level?
And I'm not sure if I heard you say,
Yeah.
have they pulled permits to do this work?
So we haven't found.
You don't know.
Not yet. I think they're still searching for them, but we haven't seen them at the moment.
Well, as somebody who just went through a 9-year process to get a remodel permit on my own house.
9 years. One can only hope. for 9 years.
Is that through the county?
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's not right. It's the city.
The
It's
city?
Yeah,
Well, it's the.
yeah. But I hear the county's worse.
Any other questions from directors?
So on Friday, I encourage you all to join us and join Ivy tennis units on Saturday. Again, it's our jobs to be there for our people and help and support them as much as we can.
Yeah, what time are you meeting at the space on Friday?
Around 8:30. 8:30.
In the morning?
We try to capture, so we were there, we tried to capture people like right before work. But we were surprised when we were there Wednesday morning how many people were home.
All right, well, I'll just say briefly that I'm very thankful that you did go door to door, and it was very, I'm just glad that you and the office is moving so quickly on this and that you're here for this. We appreciate your time. Do any members of the public have questions for Jordan?
You know, one thing that I find surprising about this is that the lack of knowledge of demographics of the region. And to my understanding, the company in charge of that apartment complex is out of Chicago. And I mean, the question I have is, if you're going to do this massive renovation and then removal of tenants, or however you want to word that, wouldn't it behoove you legally, morally, ethically, common sense wise, to have boots on the ground in the area to know that demographic, to understand that demographic, and to maybe come up with some sort of negotiation? Wouldn't it behoove them?
You notice I took off my county badge. So speaking as a human, as a resident, community member, that hat off, I would say it would be, for me as an individual, there are so many resources here in Santa Barbara that it was a huge misstep of this company to not even do a Google search to see what can be provided for all these residents. They did not understand or even learn that this is a very engaged and involved community. They didn't do that. And so for me, I'm very curious as to how, because we know that this probably won't be the last of mass evictions. But at the county, how can we have, when permits are requested, how can we have, hey, if you're going to do this, these are resources that you need to at least provide to your tenants, or make sure that they are aware of this information, because it's just not right. It's morally and ethically not right. Again, like, we feel that they could phase things around, like move people around. They could do a lot of other things, but I think this company likes to move into areas and take over buildings and flip them and make them really nicer for students, which, in turn means probably higher rent.
Yes.
Thank you. And I guess for anyone who's at home, Ethan Bertrand, Collegiate Union School Board member, but here on my own behalf. Thank you, Jordan, for that awesome update. Appreciate all that your office is doing. As far as what this looks like for our kids in school, I don't know that I can share how many kids we have living there in our schools, but it's a significant number of students. And I mean, I was pleased to hear from Alex that there may be a longer timetable for some of these tenants. that's good news. But even with that, there's nowhere to move in Ivy right now. And for a lot of working families, it's cost prohibitive to move anywhere really in Goleta or South Coast Santa Barbara. So this really is going to result in the displacement of families. As we formed this district, a big focus of ours was how do we make this a community not only for students, but also for people who are just working and living here. And every time this happens, that just takes whole segments of our community out. So I think going forward, I know if you look right now, there are a number of real estate portfolios for sale in Isla Vista. And I think whatever the Board of Supervisors can do proactively, looking at tightening the ordinance to prevent this from happening going forward is definitely going to be critical. Yeah, definitely disappointed in the property owners that are doing this, but grateful for all of the resources that are stepping up.
All right. Any other members of the public wish to ask questions or comment? I don't see any, so I'll go back to the board and see if there's any conversation or questions or discussion that the board members would like to have. Director Freeman.
I have some commentary, but I think it applies to the next agenda item, which is on this, more directly on this topic.
Got you, got you. Okay, well, thank you, Jordan, for being here. We very much appreciate it. And
I have a question.
okay.
I just
Question.
want to ask our attorney, does the IVCSD have any authority over these types of issues? In terms of passing ordinances, making requirements of property providers, property owners? That's my question.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the eviction procedures and what landlords are required to do to evict a tenant is established by state law. So in terms of the district's authority, it would be subordinate to that. Based on the establishing statute of the IVCSD, I think the tenant mediation program could be a community service that is offered by IVCSD for landlords and tenants to try to mediate and agree to, for example, an extended move-out date, discounted rent, things like that, without having to go to court and having an eviction on the record. But in terms of, for example, requiring a landlord to engage in that process, I think the IVCSD would be hard pressed to require that, only because what they are required to do is already established by state law, unfortunately.
You have to add it to our LAFCO list.
Yeah.
Not to say it can't be done. I mean, I'd be happy to research alternatives or options, but I think it's probably not much, unfortunately.
What do you think, Jonathan?
I think there's maybe creative ways, like not necessarily around the eviction, but if someone requests mediation, you have to do it. It just creates another roadblock or obstacle. We probably can't prevent anything, but create ways to disincentivize this behavior. We have our code enforcement power too. I don't know how that plays in. But
Okay.
Yeah, with evictions, like I didn't catch the other attorney's name, Alex. He like he said, a lot of evictions start with the initial notice. Sometimes there can be substantial problems with those notices. So in terms of getting resources to people, knowing what is required to be in the notice is very important, because that's what starts the process. If this is a part of a redevelopment project or something like that, there are also options and requirements for payment of relocation fees for a lot of tenants. and relocation services as well. And so that's maybe something that IVCSD could help out with, is relocation services, move out services, things in that regard.
So for example, when a company is going to lay off a certain percentage of employees, they have to notify local government prior to the layoff notices, right? And I just wonder if there's something within our authority that would require property owners to notify elected governmental bodies about this type of thing. So we know, we have a heads up in advance, so we're not hearing it from the people who have been served the notices, but we're hearing it from the property owners that they are going to be engaged in this process, so that we have an advance heads up and can have processes and procedures and policies in place to help people in advance. Any thoughts on that?
Initially, again, I mean, I don't know. We can always try and research it. I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but my initial reaction would be probably not, only because while the IVCSD is the, concerned public body with regard to the property at issue, it has no property interests. And so I don't see any entitlement for the IVCSD to receive notice. Not to say that it can't. But I would have to do a little bit more research on that aspect of it.
What about the county? If the county passes an ordinance on eviction processes, couldn't they put in some type of requirement about notifications, advance notification?
I'm not sure. I know that the county can do eviction moratoriums, and that's what was happening for a while. But I don't recall seeing anything about advance notices. I think it's rare for a mass termination like this to take place in any place in California. So that I'm not sure about either, unfortunately.
What I worry about a bit is that, and Jordan spoke to this, is that this company coming in, they don't know this community, and then even saying there's other property portfolios that are for sale. It's like there's a precedent that's going to be established with this. And that's why I think it really behooves us as a body, and obviously the county is doing a lot of work on this, to look at ways that we can significantly disincentivize companies from coming in and doing these kind of things that they're doing with the reno evictions.
If I may,
Yeah.
I can, from our call, it was really clear that Scott Sager was like, yeah, we didn't do our homework on this.
Good.
And that's because of all the press. He had read every article. He actually was the one that told us, like, no, it's actually 550 people living there, not 1,000. Even though I think that's probably 550 people that they have on record.
Yeah, right.
But we know how that goes.
That's an IP number.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And so I think the negative press for their company, it hit them.
Good.
Yeah, so I think we can continue that. I think most of the journalists in this town are ready. They're ready to fight for these individuals and families.
All right, thank you, council. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for your questions, Director Deschler. We're luckily going to continue on this engaging topic in the next item, 4.2. This is a letter to the County of Santa Barbara on eviction policies.
So Marcos and I worked on putting this together, and we attended the different meetings that happened last week that this was discussed at. And what it is we like was said just now, we're listening to all these things, and there wasn't as much that IVCSD could directly do. So what we can do is we can at least advocate and try to make policy change. So the 4 points that we heard between the different meetings, and there are different levels of feasibility and implementation, but what we heard and that we put in the letter was funding legal counsel for tenants, updating ordinance 4444 to, tighten it, to prevent things like this, having a similar legislation as the city council in Santa Barbara, where you have to require permits, you require staggered timeline, you require relocation, you require coming back to your original rent. So creating rules like that. And then another one was declaring a moratorium on mass evictions with the local emergency on housing. So these are the ideas that we've been hearing out there. So we also caveated it as exploring every possible legal avenue. So we hope these things can get explored. Some of them might be possible or less possible, but for example, we've seen the legal counsel. I think the call we were on said Oakland did it or San Francisco did it. So we know that some of these things are possible.
Freeman.
I'm trying to understand in number 2, updating ordinance 44444 to close possible loopholes. What kind of loopholes? It just seems kind of.
Yeah, one
3
thing
was really concrete.
Yeah, maybe we could make that more specific. Like one thing we heard was that, like what Alex said, is not everyone's has to go at the same time. And ordinance 4444 has specific numbers of people that need to be evicted for it to trigger. So so that's like one thing where you could make it tighter there so that it's not like the staggered leaving of people doesn't fall outside of it possibly. But we don't know if I can't say that's for sure, but
Yeah, this is
that's-
one
it's just
thing.
one,
That was just,
yeah.
when I read like, 3's got all these concrete ideas.
Yeah.
And 2 is just close loopholes. And I was like, what are we talking about? Hey, Jordan is.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. So Riley at the Student Union, phenomenal, sent us a whole list of different cities throughout California, counties throughout California, of what they do and what the ordinance is, straight to county council. So the county council has that information on how we can tackle that. So we're just waiting to hear back.
I was not exactly clear what the thought was about part 1. Because it doesn't seem like it's specific to this situation, but we're asking for a blanket legal aid for anyone facing eviction, which I would assume that in some cases they're just cause evictions and they're not this kind of mass event. So, and then also, as I'm learning too, that we're not really at the eviction stage yet. So is it really, we want it once it gets to the eviction stage and specifically in a mass event like this? Or I guess I'm just not clear what we're thinking about there.
Yeah, it's just based on like what other communities do where tenants have the right to counsel, where they can get legal counsel if they get faced with eviction or termination of tenancy. So they would, so that because these people can't afford their own lawyers, and he said that legal aid would not be able to cover everybody. So it would basically be doing what Kirsten's saying, where if everybody has a lawyer, then why would a developer come in and want to fight with 234 different cases? Then they'd have, so that's like the idea behind it. Because right now, none of them have legal representation, or some of them do, but not 234, however many it is.
Director Dashley.
First of all, I think this is a really well-written letter. Second of all, we say in number 4, in light of a local emergency on housing. Is there, obviously we know there's issues of housing issues in our community. Is there a local emergency? That makes it sound like there's a designated local emergency. I think that should be
Maybe we can
reworded.
reword that, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. And then the other thing is, have we given thought to elevating and sending a letter to our assembly member and our senator, state senator? Just again, just another type of engagement. I mean, obviously they're aware of these issues, but something official from us on this issue, I think might be warranted.
Well, we're at UCSB too.
Yeah, CSB, care of.
Or you think you can CC them?
Yeah, I would do that as well.
Like CC them to this one or bring back another letter?
However whatever, I just think a line of communication.
Okay.
I think there's a question on the screen.
All right, Director Scholes.
So I had a 2-part question about number 4. The first one is like, is it realistic for us to be able to declare something like that in the amount of time to prevent like the actual evictions of the CBC? And on that note, would we be talking about stopping completely mass evictions, or would it be the notices of termination instead? I don't know whether that legal difference matters there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible. We're saying these are ideas that they should be explored by the county. So it might not be something that can be done. But we're putting it forward as something that could be looked into. And in terms of mass versus we could tie it in the language. We worked on this before we were learning as we went with this with the terminology. So we'll tie it in the language on evictions versus termination of tenancy.
Dr. Freeman.
I'm definitely strongly supportive of sending this letter. The prospect of somebody having to frantically find somewhere new to live, given the low vacancy rate and the awkward scheduling with respect to our communities, like openings. I mean, I every year am always get really like panicky about my lease renewal, because I want to make certain that my lease actually gets renewed, because if it doesn't, now it's like already halfway through the process of not being able to get an apartment. This year I got an email that was just poorly worded from them, that was like my property management company saying that, like, the time for lease renewal has passed, and I was like, what? I thought I was supposed to be renewed, and I'm like looking at it, it's like, if you're not seeing the portal the following thing, I don't see a thing like that in the portal. And like, and so the prospect of people now like months after everything is rented receiving a notice like this and knowing that everyone around them is going to be competing for the same thing, it's just horrifying to me. And so I'm very supportive of sending this letter. But
Thank you for that.
that's the least we could figure out to do.
Ella, go ahead.
I want to second that sentiment. I know I speak for a lot of students when I say that we panic about finding housing like over winter break. So having it at this point is like terrifying. Like the prospect of that many people not having the ability or the time to find housing. So I am also in support of this.
All right, I want to go to the public right now for public comment.
I just want to make a comment. If anyone finds out of the 240 notices that were sent, it would be so great if anybody talks to Core Spaces to find out what all the dates are involved, because we really don't know that, right? We know some could be in the next month, some could be in a year. And so if anyone talks to the Core Spaces people, we can ask them, because that will have an impact on how our community is able to respond.
Are you asking for like a possible list of dates? Like
Yeah.
the Core Spaces, like give us an anonymous list of dates that you have scheduled.
Yeah, number of units and date. Who knows? Maybe Jordan can do it. Jordan can do anything.
You're very kind, very sweet. So if I can speak to that, so like the notices, majority of them probably said 60-day, but the truth is that it was a notice per unit for their specific situation. So it's probably going to be relatively different dates for probably each, pending if they don't up and leave.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of going on there. So I don't know if that I'm happy to have that. I'm happy to bring that to the supervisor for our next conversation with them. But I don't think we can find a huge swath of people to be around the same time, aside from maybe the UCSB students and SPCC students. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. All right, I want to go to the public for any questions or comments. Is there any public comment? Yes.
You know, one of the things, this is basically the biggest, and Jordan said it himself, the biggest affected or thing that has affected the company that's doing this is the media. We got to keep them on top of it. Just keep them on top of it. You can't relent on this. You have to be tenacious about it. You know, it's negative press, but unfortunately, it's also truthful. Sometimes the truth is kind of negative. So be truthful about it. With respect to Director Dreschler's comment about notifying our state assembly and state senator, our legal counsel here, she said that we're subordinate to state mandate. What better way to get, to be subordinate to it than to have laws in our favor in the form of state mandate? So reaching out to state assembly and state senate would be a good thing. And then, Manager Abood, he said about code enforcement. And I think that code enforcement has a few things in it that can thwart or at least delay evictions. I know that in certain sections of my home state of Florida, yes, we're all kind of crazy there. Don't mind me. Florida man doesn't exist. There are code enforcement laws that do prevent mass evictions, or not prevent, but they thwart. They can kind of disincentivize it. So these are things to look at. You have to look at media, you have to look at contact with the state assembly, and you have to look at code enforcement. And the letter, as I see it, it's definitely a must. That must be sent in. And the emergency, local housing emergency, it's not just local, it's pretty much statewide. So this is something to consider. But the thing is, we have a very unique aspect to the housing emergency in this region. And there's a lot of variables to it, a lot of factors and variables to it. They're very unique to this region. So I think that maybe wording something to say, due to the given nuances of our community, the housing crisis here, the housing emergency is it's a crisis. It's a crisis. So this is my 2 cents worth on that.
Thank you for those comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to thank IVCSD, the board, and staff. I want to thank you so much for putting this letter together. I feel like I've mentioned it before, but the Office of Supervisor Caps, our team, we lean on Isla Vista and you all to let us know what you need. And so we're grateful to kind of get a head start on some of these items because of our relationship, and we want to continue to uplift your voice. And so we're grateful for you all to send in that letter. I will say the next Board of Supervisors meeting is next Tuesday, April 4th. And there is a public comment period where feel free as leaders of Isla Vista to share what's going on and also uphold your letter. That is your right. And I know hopefully in the future Board of Supervisors meeting, we'll be able to get a conversation going. I'm hopeful.
Thank you for those comments.
Would it be of value that this letter is copied to the other supervisors as well as the CAO on, is that of value? So that other supervisors are seeing what we've sent to your boss?
I think it would, I don't think it would hurt.
Okay.
And I gave them a call heads up yesterday.
All right, do any other members of the public have comments or questions they'd like to make? All right, I'll bring this item back to the board for discussion and consider approval of this letter or adjustments that need to be made to the letter before we share it with the County of Santa Barbara. And their directors have comments or questions? We'll go ahead and start. I learned about this whole story. I feel too late to the game. As a community leader, it definitely hurts to be last in this and to be in my own world and not aware of what's going on until further notice, until it's a news story. So that's something that I definitely felt a little bit of personal shame about and leadership shame about, to learn about this late. But part of that is the poor communication of these notices of termination of tenancy. If there was more proper and healthy communication, then I think that we would all be aware. And I think that some of the comments shared earlier from directors about possible policies that can include elected bodies, whether it's us or the county or someone else, would be very helpful. when I had the chance to go and spend some time at CBC and Sweeps on Saturday and just see what help the Santa Barbara Tenants Union and other organizers were giving to those neighbors, it was really, really intense for me personally. It reminded me a lot of where I grew up in Fresno, and very much just people that felt like my own family. And I was able to imagine the kind of crisis that that would feel like. And I also felt kind of powerless when I looked at our powers, that we couldn't do a lot, but that we do have a voice and we do have an audience, and that does mean something. And clearly that has made an impact so far. So I've grown a lot in my motivation for this whole topic, this letter in particular. And it's something I'm going to be taking with a lot of personal energy, whether I'm speaking as a director or speaking in public comment or speaking just on the grass there in the middle of the Sweeps to the neighbors. Yeah, it's something that just really touched me in a very intense way. And I can feel that a lot of other folks in this room and who aren't here also feel that same kind of energy and wanting to help and wanting to build community and not wanting to let others disappear or walk away when they don't have to. Yeah. Director Freeman.
Yeah, I guess I'm sorry, by the way. So I had heard about the this almost like a couple hours, I think, after people started getting the notices, because Rapid Rehousing contacted me, and then I was like limited to remember, I didn't like which board members should I talk to about it, you know, we're gonna come before things. So I chose Spencer, and Spencer was, I think, a good choice because Spencer poked Jordan. But I probably should have talked to Jonathan. Maybe Jonathan would have been able to tell everyone at the district about it, so it would have been helpful.
Luckily, I mean, I saw things online from different friends and heard about it. Luckily, thanks to the Daily Nexus. And yeah, I think we are moving fast now as a community. Yeah. Any other directors have comments or questions? Are there any specific suggestions we want to add to this letter or changes that we think that we need to address before we consider approval and sending, or specifically the folks that we do want to send this to? I think that looking at state leaders is a very good idea. I think that looking at the rest of the county supervisors is a good idea. And I think, yeah, I agree with some of the suggestions about tightening a little bit of the language as we learn more, as we get a little bit more information. I'm sure after Alex finishes his meeting he's having right now, we'll have a little bit more accurate sentences to put in.
I would like to move that we send this letter with nominal adjustments as seem fitting.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion by Topliff, as second by Freeman. Is there any public comment to this motion?
Do it.
Thank you for those comments. Jonathan, can I have a roll call on this motion?
Yes, Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Topliff,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Deschler,
Yes.
Director Schultz.
Yes.
All right, motion passes 5-0-0-2. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for participating in that. I'd like to move on to item 4.3, the contract with Dixon Resources Unlimited for parking study services.
Okay, yeah, woohoo for sure. We've seen this before. We've talked about this before. We had it at our June agenda of last year. Believe it. So there's been no major updates. There's been minor updates to the proposal, like the scope of work based on the meetings we had with UCSB and the county to get them to sign on to funders. So like one example is doing a parking study at Goleta Beach as well. So that's just part of this, the update, but otherwise it's the same price, $246,000. That's what the contract is for. We've got the funding confirmed for, it's not in the bank, but it's, you know, we have agreements from UCSB and the county. So we're ready to approve the contract, and Marcos and I already met with Dixon to just start talking about how we're going to start. So we're ready to go.
Director Freeman.
If you want to understand that, so we do have agreements from the county and the university to provide their part of the funding.
We do.
Yeah.
I don't have the checks in hand. I've been given verbal agreed, yeah.
Okay.
All right, do any other directors have questions?
Move for approval.
All right, is there any public comment about the contract with Dixon Resources Unlimited?
It's more of a question I had, is how extensive of a study are they planning on doing? And what does the study entail? I mean, you know, one of the biggest methods of doing a study is observation, and you're gonna have to, it would greatly benefit them to have just put some cameras up and watch the traffic patterns in Isla Vista.
It's happening.
Good.
Yep,
Good.
very thorough.
To an extent that I'm even a little bit uncomfortable with it, but I'm gonna vote for it anyway.
But look, I mean, the reason I say this is because the block I live on, Segovia, you watch the traffic patterns, you know, you watch the people frantically searching for parking spots. And there are different cycles of it. You can actually kind of set your clock by how the cars move on that street. It's really bizarre. It's almost like there was that show called Push Nevada. It's almost like that. And one of the big things that we don't get on that block, we don't get a lot of the van campers. We don't get a lot of motorhomes on it, which is good. But we do get a lot of people that live downtown and they want to park in IV because they go to IVCSD. So you see this weird exodus outward of people going to work or school. And then you see this massive exodus coming in of people trying to find parking spots to go to work or school. And then there's these lulls in between. It's really bizarre. So they're going to have to watch these patterns, and it's going to be different on every block. I promise you this. It is going to be extremely different on every block. So something to consider. But another thing too is that I have to add is the parking study. What they should do is implement some controls. And one of the controls you can implement is marking the areas that should be in red, mark them red. And at least that'll get the ball rolling on that. And you can see how that dictates how the parking patterns are going to be. So, you know, like for example, driveways. It's always been a big topic, especially with as many cars as we've had blocking our driveway. If those down ramps get painted red, that's a form of control, and it would definitely benefit that study to at least get that in place and then watch what happens from there. So just my 2 cents on that. Observations everything.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're gonna.
Okay, yeah. I'm happy to say that part of this study will cover a 12-month period. And Jonathan and I did get the privilege to look at draft 1 map of the different roads and lanes to consider. And him and I both had different nuances to add and color in. So we haven't finalized the exact map yet, but we are working in tandem, and we're also working on the strategy of which stakeholders will be involved and how we have, continuous community engagement. I think that this team at Dixon is a lot more flexible, or a lot more adaptive, I should say, during the process. And I was really confident personally that when we interviewed different firms, they had multiple experiences in a beach town similar to what Isla Vista was, because I felt like that did have some of that odd lulls and peak times. And yeah, I feel really confident with this team that they'll be willing to work with us and understand the nuances of IV. Also, I think we mentioned before, but the leader of Dixon Resources is a woman named Julie Dixon, who got her start in parking policy in Isla Vista, originally as a parking enforcement agent. So she's definitely very familiar and it's dear to her heart.
It's very cool.
Director Freeman.
Yeah, so back in 2015, before the district got formed, and when we were doing the AB3 process, there was a subcommittee on parking that I was in charge of. And one of the things that I kind of brought to the thought process was at that time, like I was initially excited about automated license plate recognition. And then very rapidly, I started to decide that I was not in fact excited about it as we spent more time debating and determining. Now that is however, something that Dixon is going to be leaning heavily into. As far as I understand, they're not using fixed security cameras around various places, but will be driving around in cars doing license plate recognition. I might have misunderstood that point. But it is something that I'm like watching as this scope of this continues, and I'm currently like marginally comfortable enough with the things that are happening to both get the benefits that you're talking about, which I think are very exciting, but also I keep wanting to balance it with. Actually, I'm once again wearing today my Calix Institute T-shirt. This is a nonprofit whose mission is to educate the public about privacy and digital communications. And something that I care deeply about is these sorts of issues, and so. I'm just constantly on the fence on this one, but I definitely see there's a lot of benefits to doing this sort of thing. And it certainly is a lot cheaper than a lot of the more manual alternatives that would be being done. And in order to make this study feasible at the scale that it is at, and is something that the community has been essentially demanding this be looked into for decades now. And it is one of the big reasons why we got the support to form. And so that is why I'm supportive of going down this path with the provisos that I've been kind of watching what exactly it is they're doing and what the balancing act is on how comfortable I can be about it. So.
All right. Do any other members of the public have questions or comments on this?
No comments, just glad to hear. I wanted to hear the vote of this.
All right. Let's go back to the board. We had a motion on the floor to approve this contract. Is there any other board discussion on the approval of the contract?
Who was the first and second?
We did not have a second yet.
We don't. Okay.
I did it, didn't I?
Yes.
I obnoxiously did it before the
During the
comment.
question.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
And
have
I'll
a.
second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Deschler and a second by Topliff. Jonathan, can I have a roll call vote on this motion?
Yes, I lost my agenda. Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Topliff,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Deschler,
Yes.
Director Schultz.
Yes.
All right, thank you. This motion passes 5-0-0-2. All right, we will now move on to item 4.4, the resolution 23-4, a formation of a parking standing committee.
Okay, so this is this committee, we had a board discussion in January about how we might want to go about oversight of the parking study. And we think that this system does reflect what the board had requested. So the model here is that we would have a standing committee of the board. So 1 to 3 board members can be on it. That will be the public opportunity, either like once a month, every other month, what we decide for people to come address. You know, we can have a report of what the study's been, how it's been going. People can, you know, air out their concerns or ideas. But we also wanted to have a, you know, steering committee kind of group that's not in public meeting, so that we can, you know, do the nitty gritty of the day-to-day project management. And that would be with our partners who are funding the study, UCSB and the county. And so what we figured out we could do, similar to the discussion we had on IVSafe as well, is having this committee being the public space for that. And the chair of this committee, the board member who's the chair of the committee, and myself can then work with the representative from county and UCSB, you know, offline to prepare for these meetings and to do other oversight for the parking study. And then this meeting can be when we can report out to the public. So it doesn't have to monopolize our board meeting agendas either. That was a big concern we heard. But it also gives the public opportunity to, you know, pressure valve, and we can adjust to based on what we're hearing from public, but without having to like the day-to-day oversight and project management with our partners in public. So if we, so let me know if this is kind of what you guys were thinking. Yeah,
I think it's
a
Jamie.
great idea.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Okay,
Yeah.
so, okay, so let me see. So to be creating this standing parking committee,
Yeah.
that would be 1 to 3 folks that would basically interface and have meetings and interface with the public and give them periodic updates on the process and hear from people on their concerns.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be in addition to the town halls and other engagement that Dixon would be providing.
Yeah, but we would be planning those.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's not
it's
too
not the
crazy.
same. Yeah.
Okay, and then the steering committee would be who?
It'd be the chair of this parking committee,
Mhm.
UCSB's designate and the
Mhm.
county designate. and
Mhm.
myself, and we would then be working, and with Dixon on.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
because that's what I heard in the discussion is we needed both kind of functions, but
Absolutely,
we
yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
mix them. And so
we
this
can't
would be
mix
the-
them. So the parking committee can't be on the steering committee,
Yeah, the chair of the park.
only the
Only-
chair, but
Yeah,
no one
only
else.
one. That's because we didn't want, if you have a regular meeting,
Uh-huh.
then that becomes a standing committee.
Okay.
So that's why we
I hear
decided,
you.
it couldn't be an ad hoc committee that met with the stakeholders, essentially, yeah.
So I just have a question about myself.
Mhm.
About me. No, I just
Yeah.
want to know because I may be the person from UCSB
Okay,
on as part of the parking committee, not from the IVCSD's perspective, but from the university's perspective. Is that something that can happen, given that I may be on the standing parking committee, but maybe not?
yeah, I don't know.
So maybe I
that's-
shouldn't be, and then that way, if I'm at UCSB, then it won't be an issue. I
my-
just want to look out for Brown Act issues
Yeah.
and also Brown Act issues as part of this parking committee.
Yeah, maybe our legal counsel can help with that. I don't know. That is. a
Yeah,
hard
okay.
one. That's a hard one.
Yeah, that comes up on some people.
Sorry, can you clarify that? I'm not sure I'm exactly understanding.
So in my day job as Director of Government Relations at UC Santa Barbara, I participate in a lot of meetings like this one, like, so it would be on parking, it'd be on other Isla Vista issues. And so I'm not on we haven't determined who is going to be on the standing parking committee. But if I am on the standing parking committee, it seemed like it would be a conflict, or not, conflict isn't the right word, but maybe bring up some kind of issue if in my day job, I'm also participating in these parking meetings.
Yeah, potentially. Not on the basis of any fair political practices conflict. There is a doctrine of common law bias, which basically means that with any decision that you make, you have to be fair and impartial. And if you are participating in the same subject matter in other regards, you may appear to be biased and therefore not fair and neutral in the decision that you're making. And so any information that you received, you would have to, number one, disclose that information, and then ultimately make a determination of whether or not you could be fair and impartial. And so that would be my recommendation if you were chosen to be on the parking committee.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a Brown Act issue then? Maybe it would be a
Well,
Brown
yeah,
Act issue. It could
Jamie,
potentially be a Brown Act.
If I can ask it, like, if there's 3 members of the parking committee and what the chair is not Kirsten, but it's someone else,
Mhm.
and they go to the working group with UCSB in the county, and then Kirsten also comes to the working group as UCSB's person, does that then create a quorum of our parking committee or a Brown Act issue?
Just a stop your man, it's like greatness town.
Yeah, I think that's the question, but we could just make it easy and just say I shouldn't be on the standing committee.
Yeah.
I mean, that may.
Sorry, I'm pausing because I'm not entirely clear how many members of the parking committee would actually be appointed. So I don't know the majority quorum size, but I think, yes, it does lend itself to potential conflicts on its
I
face.
guess what is our president can appoint the members of the committee, so we can like look into it, not on the spot right now.
Yeah. I
And
just
decide.
wanted to
Yeah,
give that air
Yeah,
because
no, it's a
I'm
good
just kind of anticipating that could be an issue.
it's a good point.
It's
Not
also,
a
of
bad
course-
issue, but just an issue.
It's also, of course, a decision that even if other people here are someone comfortable with, you might choose to not be comfortable with it. And so you should decide, make certain you got all the information you want to have here.
It's for your own comfort.
Yeah.
For my own, oh, yes, for my own comfort, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Figure it out.
to
Yeah.
clarify, yeah, we're just considering the approval of forming the parking committee, yeah, and the structure, not the individuals and not the other more specific details, correct?
Yeah, and I think it's a really good idea. I'd like to move that we approve this.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any public comment on this motion to form a parking standing committee? All All right, I see no public comment. Do any directors have any comments on this motion?
It's very well written.
It's our legal counsel did it.
Oh, good job, legal counsel.
Thank you.
All right, Jonathan, can we have a roll call on this motion?
Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Schall's,
Yes.
Dr. Aguilar,
Yes.
Dr. Topliff,
Yes.
Dr. Desko.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes 5-0-2.
Awesome.
Now we will move on to item 4.5, the IV Beautiful Annual Report.
All right, so yeah, I'll turn it over to Jenna. This is for sure.
May I
let me-
request an IT break because I'm going to run out of battery?
Yes, let's pause and have an IT break.
4 minutes.
How many?
4.
Let's do 5 minutes.
Okay.
We can
Why
end
do we need
at
to set- Okay, now it's
7:37.
7:32. Okay.
Yeah. 5-minute break.
What?
What are you doing in 4 minutes?
We're just trying to get to 7:35 because that seemed like a good number.
Oh, just the rounded number.
We got a 4-minute magician over here.
Okay, so let's see what we did before.
There's an outlet right here. If you
Oh, so
switch-
maybe I'll just move.
Yeah, just one
Okay.
over.
Are you sure you're gonna be able to handle it?
Yeah,
Mark?
that's why I sat over here. I wanted to sit over there myself, but yeah.
I won't be too
We'll just
distracting. Okay, for you.
Increasingly huddled in the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you guys are all.
I thought about it and I was like, no, you're fine. Where's our friend Spencer?
He's in Washington DC
Oh, good for him. Yeah.
for the county supervisors.
Oh,
They're doing
nice.
their lobby day or
Oh,
something.
good for him. I just texted him. Oops. maybe
That's
woke him
cool
up.
seeing your doggy.
Oh, yeah, it's like 10:30.
Where are you? You're missed.
She's a
Yeah,
little.
He was
when
planning-
we were over at Alpha Acres and
Isn't he
Mark comes
traveling
up
back
with both
today?
of them.
No, I
So
think
when
he's
we
still
go get
there.
bikes and we're resting the dogs. and
Have we
everything,
walked in April
Alpha
22nd?
Acres, this is when you can have a conversation with these
Sorry.
people.
We're gonna talk. Mark,
Yeah.
Okay.
He's all excited.
Oh, you're worried about me? Yeah. No, I'm sorry, it was my fault, by the way. Yeah, I had to go, I didn't,
So those
My-
two guys
yeah.
are really holding cats.
sorry,
That's okay.
sorry.
What was the issue again?
I had GRT
But
meeting
those
at
two,
Berkeley
I
Labs,
always have managed the bond. I think it's
and Kimberly couldn't go,
actually
she was sick.
There's stories.
Uh-huh.
plug it in. And it's charges up right here.
Oh, yeah, one of those, my roommate,
They do protein stuff a lot.
one of those vegans.
Vegans. Ugh. Why?
Hey.
I'm just kidding, just kidding.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting back to order at 7:37 PM. So now we will return to item 4.5, the Isla Vista Beautiful Annual Report.
Cool. Yeah, I think I already introduced Jenna as doing the annual report as part of our budget process on the goals for Ivy Beautiful and next steps.
All right, hi everyone. So first, here's our mission statement of just to remove elements like vandalism, trash, now starting on overgrown landscaping, while hopefully facilitating the addition of aesthetically pleasing elements, as well as connecting with the community and educating the community. So there's no single board goal that relates to Isla Vista Beautiful, but there's a few different goals that speak to what we do. So I just listed those here, the goals and the aspects of the goals that I feel relate to Isla Vista Beautiful. So goal 2, 3, and then here we have 4 and 5. So status quo right now, I'll just share with you some of the things that you've already seen before, but one is that we've been doing beach entrance restoration. Here's actually all of these photos are from the same beach entrance, I think on the 6-5 block. So this is really cool to do, and we've been moving to other beach entrances as well. I think we've covered all of them, but it takes constant checking up on them, which is something that we're going to be doing. Here's more. Also, mural restoration, just like we did with the utility boxes, is something that we like to continue to do. So this is actually a Sierra property management property. They reached out to us because this mural had been ruined by graffiti over years and years. And one of my team members was able to restore it, and it looks amazing. You should check it out. It's on Sueño. Graffiti abatement, of course, our team has removed well over 200 graffiti tags. The reason I don't say an exact number is because we've only began the process of documenting this type of thing. It's something that I had a little trouble nailing down, but I think we got a good process going for documenting how much graffiti we're actually tackling. Power washing is something that we've just started to do. So the power washer has been out twice now. And in those 2 sessions, they've removed over 51 tags. So these are just some of the before and afters. And I've heard a lot of really good feedback about this. So we will continue to have him out. And actually really cool, you know, the paper melted on the telephone poles, trying to figure out a solution to that. I finally found the perfect solution, and it's power washing. It comes right off with very little pressure. So that's something that we'll be doing. Landscaping, this is pretty new now that I hired actually 4 additional team members. So now we have a bigger team, and this is something we've been able to take on. We have a few more trees to go to weed around, as well as just different areas in Isla Vista. But here's some of the work that my team has done so far. Center divider planting plan. So the center divider on Picasso, we're getting ready to be able to plant a few plants there. And like I said, now that I have the staff, we will be maintaining it in terms of weeds. Litter reduction is something big we've been doing. Trash and glass. So this statistic says we've picked up around 600 pounds of trash and glass. We've only just began weighing the glass that we've collected because we have changed the way that we've been collecting it, whereas before it was more difficult to keep track of. So now we will have more solidified data on the glass that we're collecting as well, which will be cool. I've created some outreach material. Finally, it's in our hands and I've been passing it out. So that includes stickers that people can put on their trash and recycling bins, indicating what to throw away and what to recycle, as well as a fridge magnet that gives a lot of information on waste disposal. We've also been doing data collection. As you know, the green trash bins now, instead of being serviced Tuesday and Thursday, are being serviced Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I've been going by there and it's looking a lot better than before. So the yard sale was really, really popular despite the weather. I think about half of the people who actually signed up participated. So these statistics, basically there were 30 sales total with 96 people participating among all of those sales. Like I said, yeah, I think 160 people were projected to participate. I can't remember, I think it was like 60 sales. And because of the weather, that didn't happen, but this still shows what a big turnout it was. And I got a lot of positive feedback. On lighting improvements, we held a lighting walk to identify lighting deficiencies in Isla Vista, where we invited people who work for the county to come walk around with us and see it for themselves. I personally am working on a detailed evaluation of streetlights. So not only identifying lights that are out, but also which lights need higher wattage and exactly where we are lacking in streetlights as well. So that's something I'm currently working on because Laura Capps actually asked for it. So I'll hand it right over to her once it's done. So here's my time breakdown, and most of it is team management. Outreach has been happening a lot more with the yard sale and the development of these educational materials. And this includes the creation of the educational material as well. I do a lot of research too on what we can do and how we can do it, how we can complete beautification tasks to the best of our ability. Here is my team's time breakdown. And you'll see outreach is 17%. That's because right when I hired 4 more people, we had the yard sale. So I think that's a little bit inflated. However, going forward, it's definitely something that we will be doing more of consistently. So in terms of equipment budget, we're doing pretty well. I'm hoping to maybe make a little bit of a bigger purchase coming up soon. Contractor budget, we're reaching the top of that, mostly on power washing. And then outreach budget, also reaching the top of that as well. So some possibilities going forward. Now, these are just suggestions of how and where we can expand if we wanted to. So let's go and talk about what this all requires. So improving the move out process is something that I'm already working on, but if we wanted to take it to a larger scale, we would need more time to continue researching the how other people do this move out process in other college towns, as well as creating new processes and managing the details of those processes. So like I said, something I'm already doing, but if we really want to take it to a larger scale, there's a lot that can be researched about this topic and implemented. So more time. The addition of art, allocating time to identify artists or potential locations and finalize designs. This wouldn't take that much time. It's actually something that I myself could easily take on. More community connections. This is also something that's already happening, but the C-Click app, the administrative part, it can get quite complicated. And if we wanted to perfect it, it would be good to have additional time to focus on that aspect. I'm in the middle of creating volunteer opportunities, and when I do, help would be amazing. And also connecting with residents and local organizations and businesses, it would be great to have more time to show them that we care and interact with them. So like I said, I'm doing this stuff, but we can always use more. But litter reduction and prevention, another thing that I'm working on. Just need to allocate time to work with the county and Marburg to ensure sufficient trash service. And also to just continue what we're doing, picking up trash and glass. In terms of funding, these are just estimates. I think it would be great to at least have some type of annual funding for the move out process. I know that we were granted funding in my last presentation, which is amazing. I think it would be great to have some standard amount every year. The addition of art, this is an estimate as well. I'm thinking maybe 15 grand can get us 5 murals. And I know that we are working on actively adding murals currently, so we can also see how that goes as well. One thing though is I would love a little bit higher of an outreach budget, just seeing how fast my current budget of 1,700 is going. So that's definitely a strong suggestion. And then litter reduction and prevention. I mean, my team is taking care of it really well. The only thing I would recommend is potentially funding for new trash bins along Pardal. And this is an estimated cost as well, but I have been gathering information and speaking to people with the county to figure out what we would be allowed to have there. And I'm pretty clear at this point on what we would be allowed to have there. So that being said, this is an estimate. And then one more suggestion, just eventually it would probably be helpful to have someone under me, and it would be the best if it was one of my current staff members who is promoted to this position, to just help me with a few things like operating C-Click Fix, scouting Isla Vista, assisting with some of the move out plan details and behind the scenes. Collecting and organizing team data is a big thing that actually takes up a lot of time, and I feel like I'd be able to more accurately do it if I had some help, as well as team scheduling and management. So just a suggestion of a team restructuring that I think would be beneficial to Isla Vista Beautiful. And that's all. Any questions, comments?
Any questions from the board?
I had a question about great presentation. Thank you. It's really a great presentation. Very understandable. I mean, it's just amazing the work they're doing. I imagine your house is very clean. Because you just have such a knack at this. Anyways, I was going to ask you about Picasso. Have a little Google map here. Where is that area, the Picasso area?
So look up St. Mike's Church.
Oh, okay, so it's right. It's that little by Camino Pescadero.
Yes.
A little island.
So I guess my question is that's like a street project, right? So that's Public Works, County Public Works. Does County Public Works contribute any funding for the beautification?
Not currently. They know about the project. I've been working with them, and for a while now, there's been nothing there. And then recently a community member started to plant things. And it turns out that we're going to need a permit for us to be able to plant.
Right.
And they're offering to let us get the permit for free.
And then water, how's water handled?
So I am planning to have 5-gallon buckets or water bottles filled up and brought to the location in order for it to be watered, which is actually something that that Isla Vista Parks District does.
They bring the
So
water buckets?
in certain situations,
Okay.
I spoke to them about it, said, what do you think about this? And they were like, yeah, this is what we do for certain instances. And the plants that the resident planted there are doing really well right now. So if we just plant some drought tolerant plants, I don't anticipate it being an issue. I talked to a few different people about that because that was one of my concerns as well.
Have we requested money from the county for beautification?
I don't
I
believe
mean,
so.
in general, no, this is why we exist, because they've never done beautification work.
You're like,
We are.
hello, Kirsten.
Yeah, this is what we're.
Yeah, it
trying to
just
add
seems
to the
like,
table, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like all the things we maintain on county property, like the
Right,
trees.
Yeah.
right.
We're cleaning those up, the
Right.
curbs, we're cleaning that up, yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna wrap my brain.
Yeah.
I had a question. So if you scroll up to your personal time breakdown pie chart, I just wanted to know from that breakdown, you mentioned team management. Could you tell us, like, if you were seeking like further education or certificate or something like that in this realm that could benefit you in this role? Because when I look at the breakdown of the possible like new thing, is there any particular like form of education that you're like specifically looking forward to that we can help you along the lines with?
Oh, I mean, I feel that I have a handle on it. However, I'm always open to some kind of management training as well. But it's not that I feel like I can't do it. I just think that if someone were to help me take a little bit of it off my plate, then I could focus on other things. But I want to be clear, I feel comfortable doing it and everything, but I also think there's always room to learn as well.
Yeah, I mean, part of my question, I guess, is like, as we look at a lot of our programs start to expand, I feel like part of it is that the leaders we have in these programs we're confident in, but also like we keep expanding our services. So managing a growing portfolio just takes a little bit more time. And yeah, I'm very impressed with this presentation. I'm very happy with the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
I have can I ask a question? I have a question about trash services.
Uh-huh.
And so, on Pardell right now, you have the green trash cans. Those were put in by the county
Redevelopment agency.
okay? And then they're serviced by Marburg,
Yes.
and the county pays Marburg for the servicing?
Yes.
But we've contacted Marburg to increase the service?
Both the county code enforcement and Marburg, I've spoken to both of them. Somewhere along the way, I believe like the code enforcement officer contacted Marburg as well. And I think he was the one that actually told me the news that they were going to increase service days based on all of the data that my team collected of the overflowing trash bins. So yes, Marburg collects and the county pays for it.
And so the funding for the new trash cans, county normally would pay for it, but they don't. So that's why you're asking the IVCSD to pay for it.
Well,
I mean, it's not, I'm not saying that disparagingly. I'm just summarizing.
Yeah, the county would do it.
Well, that's okay. Well,
Getting more and more
but
frustrated over here.
also, the reason I asked for it is because there had to be a lot of back and forth about this For example, I had to have a meeting with Chris Nedden about if it would even be possible, if it would be hard permits wise, and he was able to confirm that no, it wouldn't be hard, it would be possible. Didn't say one way or the other who was gonna fund it, but that it was then my job to then go research what can we put in that area? What will Marburg service? And it turns out that it's looking like they won't service the big valley bins that we were hopeful about, that compact trash.
Yeah.
Actually, I just found out that Marburg is really only able to service bins that are 30 gallons or 32 gallons, which is what these are, 32. Because of the area, since it's such high foot traffic, they have to physically lift the trash into the truck, and it's a special truck. It doesn't lift the bin for them.
Yeah.
So that's news to me. It took a lot of talking to different people to figure that out. So based on that knowledge, that's something I would ask you all about. I'm waiting on a quote for the company that we originally bought these trash bins from to come. They're supposed to come out. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words. They're supposed to come out and inspect our bins, give me a quote for how much it would cost to add bins where they need to be, like replace them or replace parts. So they're going to give me a quote for that. That would basically be a quote for kind of refurbishing the situation that we have going on. So once I have that in hand, I'll also give you an option for just brand new all around. That's what I'm waiting on so far. And then I can also go to the county and tell them all the info I have as well. But that's what I'm estimating new bins would cost.
So the new bins would, or rehauling the bins, that's not going to provide extra capacity. That's just replacing what's already there.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
And my goal was to get bigger bins,
Right.
50 gallon. But I found that that is actually not a possibility. And just side note that I know an argument was, oh, these green trash bins are just meant for passerbyers, not restaurant trash. But I looked the other day and at Starbucks and Habit, there are actually several trash bins on their patio. But that doesn't help the situation with the green trash bins right in front.
Yeah.
So definitely awesome that we got that third service day.
That is awesome.
Director Freeman.
So possibly to make the situation seem even more frustrating. Back in like 2015, I think it was, might have been 2016. After people were complaining to the county about those trash bins not being serviced, the county decided somebody must be in charge of these trash bins. And they were like, well, we don't know who's in charge of these trash bins. They went to the Parks District and said, we think you're in charge of these trash bins. The Parks District looked them dead back in the eye and was like, no, they're not our trash bins, they're your trash bins. And so the county has just not been servicing these trash bins or really understanding anything about these trash bins for a long time. Yeah, so from the perspective of us paying for the trash bins, I oftentimes like poke the idea of, maybe this is the county's responsibility to be supplanting something. But in honesty, this was, as mentioned by somebody, I don't know who said it, but these are the county redevelopment, the Isla Vista Redevelopment Agency put those trash bins in there. And the redevelopment agency was funded by a process that no longer exists.
Right.
And the county was stuck with their assets. And so they're just not going to pay to do anything with these trash bins. And in some sense, I can appreciate the idea that it wouldn't really be supplanting the county for us to try to get the funding for the trash bin. But I don't know, maybe where's my comment on something related to that. I'll make a couple comments about, I have a kind of a question. We can't have larger trash bins, but we just have more trash bins and as a way to get more capacity. I partly asked that, and so he's no longer here, but the guy who used to be in charge of, like, not in charge, the guy who used to own Island Vista Deli Mart, Mike, he talked to a number of the other businesses in that area, and your comment about those, the trash bins, really supposed to be for the restaurants. Everyone, including the restaurants, knows that people are putting their trash there. And the restaurants were like, we will happily service some of the trash bins if you just put one in front of our restaurant, because we want it, like you don't even have, we will be the people who will go and take the trash and put it in our thing. But the county wasn't prepared to even fix the existing trash bins, much less put in new ones. And so I'm curious, if we can possibly get more trash bins. Maybe more trash bins would actually be a problem. Maybe people complain that there's now too many trash bins in the area, but at least there wouldn't be trash overflowing around them. And if you've thought about talking to the businesses about possibly either, if you want to call it coordinating with or even partnering with them on being able to get some aspect of this trash service to happen, as opposed to necessarily if Marburg or the county starts pushing back. So
Yeah, so one thing that's kind of good news that I found out is that how there's the trash and the recycling bin on each corner. So 2 32 gallons. The code enforcement officer told me that they both go to the same place and then they get sorted.
Yes,
So
they're commingled.
and in my documentation, the trash bin is typically overflowing, whereas the recycling is much less, rarely overflows. So if we had 2 bins, 2 32 gallon, just like there are now, but both of them are labeled trash, and maybe even a message about how this will get sorted later,
Yeah.
I think that will help the situation. In terms of adding more trash bins, I don't see a huge issue with litter besides the trash bins overflowing in that area. And I do think we'd have to get permitting in order to be able to add more, whereas these are already in place. And as for talking to the businesses, something that I was thinking of doing, I would just like to have a more dependable solution in place and not have to rely on them. And I know it probably wouldn't be too much to ask, but also I don't want to ask this from them if we can find a more permanent solution.
it used to be the case that you'd actually be doing them a favor. Like back in 2016, they were asking to have a trash bin that they would service, and it would be doing them a favor to give them the trash bin. So I don't know what the situation is now. And of course, that was Mike was the person who was like really cheerleading that. He's not here anymore. So
yeah, I'm not opposed to it if need be. But like I said, it's looking pretty good every time I walk past there, besides the actual bins themselves. So.
Director Scholes.
In the budgeting for the additional funding, you put 25,000 for the trash bins. Approximately, like, how many trash bins would that be?
That's a good question. What I did for that was I took the cost of the cost that I know each green trash bin is, and I multiplied it by 16. Because there are 16 bins currently, 8 trash, 8 recycling. But like I said, they all go to the same place. So that's where I pulled that number.
So we might not need to spend all of that. That's just the highest end if you replace each one.
Yeah, if we replace all of them, thank you. Yeah, to clarify. And like I said, I'm waiting for a representative from that company to come out and assess them and let me know how much it might cost to refurbish them and if that would even be possible.
All right, do any other directors have questions or?
No questions, but thank you so much for the beautiful job that you're doing with the program. It really has been very exciting to watch this year, and your presentation was really good.
Thank you. I'm loving it.
100%.
All right, I'll go to the public. If there's any public commentary questions, yeah.
2 of the programs that CSD is in charge of that I'm really enamored with. One is Forced Compost Collective, and the other was ID Beautiful. And the reason for that is the enthusiasm and the zeal by the people running those two programs. And I appreciate everything you are doing, what you have done, but everything you have done and are doing. And with that said, you know, one of the big things that can definitely benefit Ivy Beautiful is community involvement. This is where I come in. You know, you got my 25-page bike report. I'm not going to go into that. But you know, the thing is that, you know, you mentioned about the graffiti, and as promised, I will be doing a reconnaissance run to Ivy, taking pictures of what I see, and I'll report to you on that. The planting of those plants in that little thing over there in Picasso, I love it. It's just around the corner from me. And I have an offer. I have a gray water system in my apartment that produces 250 gallons of water every other couple of days. It's more water than we can handle. I'm willing to donate some of that water, you know, so that way you don't have to rely on having to go to a spigot. You can just go to our gray water system and draw from there, take however many buckets you need and go from there. So if you want to coordinate with me on that, you have that available. You know, like I said, it would just go down the sewer if it wasn't used. The other thing too is one of the things I noticed is, and this is not a complaint, this is just a logistical fact. A lot of these things require county involvement. And I think it would benefit IVCSD to have someone from the county come out to these meetings and interact, because they need to see what's going on. If you don't see what's going on, you don't know. This was a topic of conversation about the bikes. There's bikes that are apparently dismantled, but you know, I'm not going to go into that. I already did earlier. One other thing too about the garbage cans. I have noticed a huge difference from Pardal. It is much cleaner. And a lot of business people there have told me that they really appreciate that. So it's working. It's definitely working. I think the thing about the recycle bins, those can go, because people, they just throw recyclables in the garbage anyway. And it's going to get commingled anyway, so, and then sorted. So get rid of the recycle bins, you'll have more capacity. But in all, Ivy Beautiful has been a fantastic program. I fully stand behind it, and whatever help you need on my end of things, I'm available. So like I said, I'll do my reconnaissance next week for the graffiti, and if you need the gray water for the plants, and it's got phosphates, great fertilizer. So
Thank you. I will definitely take you up on that once we get them planted.
no problem.
I appreciate the support.
If you want someone, and there's another planter I have to add. There's another planter. It's the one over by Children's Park on Picasso and Camino del Sur. That might need some plants in it too. You know, but
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't know that it wasn't the park.
that's actually county.
It is
Thank
county,
you.
yeah, that is.
That's great information.
You know, there's that one, and then of course there's that median over by Rockfire Grill.
Mhm.
That thing gets a little overgrown. That thing's it's got plants in it, but
I did see it today. Can
So-
do some landscaping.
so-
Thank you.
All right, I don't, yes.
Super quick. Great job, Jenna. You know I love your work. But that water back there, we have no purpose for it. You should use that too. And then
Oh,
use
yeah.
those to fill with his gray water.
Why
I just don't
don't you use the water?
That's a
Because
good
it's
idea.
been sitting there for way too long and it has a really bad, scary sunshine
It's
plastic
visually
taste.
ugly.
And it's ugly.
It was delivered during COVID
We
like
don't
3
know.
years ago. And
Oh.
it was in a different water.
Oh,
It's not
wow.
leaching.
That's the-
Yeah.
that's the smell. It's only carcinogenic.
Yeah, we gotta, anyways, just throwing it out there. You'll have something to carry his water in.
Thank you.
I'm done.
That's exactly what I needed.
All right, I'll go back to the board. Dr. Freeman.
I just have a question, but something I guess I must have missed. So without utilizing the gray water, which I hopefully will be utilizing, the plan was to take water from where?
Here.
Okay, yeah, I don't think you're allowed to do that. Because
Really?
Goleta water, like you're not allowed to use water from one property in order to do something on a different property. They don't want you to transport the
okay.
water across properties like that. So
I
But gray water, I don't think
Not
counts.
know
so.
It's only illegal if they know about it.
Yeah, right.
That's what Johnny Appleseed said.
I think they can find a solution to that.
Yeah,
Well, Mark Twain once said, in California, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting about.
That's so true.
All right, do any other directors have comments you'd like to make? All right, is this enough information?
Yeah.
All right,
Back to
yeah,
the finance committee.
awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does finance committee feel like they have everything they need?
All right, we'll move on to item 4.6, our community spaces annual report.
All right, let's just switch it here.
So was yes.
Musical chairs.
I'm glad that you brought that up.
All right.
It's a few like trees and I.
Thank you.
I've saved before.
All right, I'm just gonna dive right in. Hello, I'm Maya. I think you all know. Okay, topics covered. So we're gonna go over our mission. I'm gonna briefly go over our board goals, but I'm gonna keep it, like I said, brief. I'm gonna talk about our current scope of our program and what the financials are looking like, some of our accomplishments, and then talk about the proposed future scope and what those financials might look like. So this is our program mission: operating the Isla Vista Community Center and Community Room, oversee the building's programs on a day-to-day basis, work with individuals and groups interested in the spaces, and develop programming for everyone to benefit from. This is another picture from the market/yard sale that we did. We got a lot of great pictures from them, so you're just gonna see them sprinkled throughout. Yeah. So like I said, I'm not going to go into detail about our board goals, but I would just like to say from my experience, I think that we touched just about all of them, and the ones that we haven't, I will take a moment to pause on. But just some highlights: we've worked with over 20 new community partnerships since reopening, and we've worked with over 50 different nonprofit and public organizations in our spaces. We've held over 1,000 events. This is a demographics of events that I pulled from my last report that I already shared with you all. That does show that we have been working with a good variety of both families, youth, and college students. The part that I italicized is talking about the bilingual community member to provide childcare services. We did end up deciding on doing the management assistant. Sibel is amazing, so I'm really glad that we did. And I'll talk about how I'm kind of taking that board goal with me into what I'm planning to do. Yes, I'm not going to go into these, but please look over them. We have developed a lot of different nightlife programs based on some of the incentive programs that I talked about earlier, like the Poets Club, ecstatic dance, nighttime meditations, theater performances, birthday parties. Community birthday parties and communions is actually a new thing that I've seen a lot of. Word has spread quick, and a lot of people are booking us out far in advance, so it's really exciting to see. Our rotating art gallery is open and rotating. We so far have done artist with disabilities, art for activism, and we have an upcoming Filipinx exhibit, Know Your History, Know Yourself. Cultural programming as well. I listed a couple here. And this is a picture of me and Jenna from our event with donuts that we very much deserve. So my current team structure, you have me, the Community Spaces Program Manager, and then you have my two interns, Jacob and Sanaya. So when I first hired them, I kept it pretty broad as just both of them Community Spaces interns. But after fall quarter, I kind of sat them down and said, okay, what are your goals? What do you want to take from this internship? What do you like? What do you don't like? Kind of looked at their strengths. And that's where I kind of split off into two things that we really needed: on-site event intern and then social media intern. So Sanaya focuses on flyers, social media posts. Pretty much she works with Sydney a lot, right? Seeing all of these posts and sending to Sydney, they work together, get them ready to go. Jacob, on the other hand, is really good at being on-site at events. He'll go out last minute, attendance, pulling people in, and also helps manage some of the tours, the space, etc. Breakdown of my time currently. So you'll see that emails and event maintenance take up most of my time. Both of them actually 50% of everything that I do. When I say emails, that's people reaching out about questions, that's potential partnerships, but a lot of the time it's about the events. So the calendar, doing great. So many reservations, but the magnitude of it, I have at least 20 to 30 every morning when I log on, which might not seem like a lot, but it is a lot of time to go through all of them. Meetings, so 15% event planning, I have about 10% allocated. Program vendor planning and management, that's the contracts, that's working, finding new people, making sure everything looks good on the week to week. Managing interns, about 10%. Facilities planning and management is about 5%. And then all of the data analysis I showed you in my last report, that was all overtime. That's not currently allocated in my current time and what I have, although it's nice to see. This is a very detailed task breakdown of everything that I do.
Can I just ask a quick question? Are you a salaried employee or are you an hourly employee?
Salary.
So overtime meaning over your 40 hours. So,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
not an actual overtime.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what
Over 40 hours a week.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you. And then a breakdown of my intern's time. So specified interest, that's, their specific roles is about 40% of their time. Outreach is 20%. That's tabling, which especially on event weeks, they table almost every day of the week for a couple hours in different locations around town. That's putting flyers, all of the things. Emails is about 15%. I'll go through kind of the process of that, but for a time being, when the magnitude of events is so high, I was having them help me send some of the pre-reservation email information out. So that's like the first step essentially in the reservation process. Community spaces wellness checks, that's checking on the spaces once a week. Are the trash cans doing okay? Are they in the right spot? Are the couches, etc. Research and independent projects, that's things that they take initiative on, which I kind of went over in my last report, so I won't go into too much detail. So this is their individual tasks that both of them do, and then their shared tasks that they both do at the bottom. So problems with this setup, and you have the annual cost of around $80,000 at the top. So when I had them helping me with the calendar reservations, I ran into a problem that too many people are communicating with too many people, right? So did you respond to that email? Did you, even if we use the labeling system, it gets confusing. And that multitude across everything else that we're doing just wasn't working very well. Also, I spend a lot of my time responding to emails, and a lot of them are really silly questions. And I love interacting with the community, but on this level, it's something that can very easily be delegated, I think. And it causes a lack of time for me to spend towards these really important things like data analysis, facilities management, like all of these things need a lot of attention. Data analysis, I already talked about it. And also a problem I've been seeing is there's not a lot of room for quality checks. So we have a lot of these stages, but like me checking to see if everyone did the cleanup checklist and if they submitted all their pictures, like that gets lost in a lot of the other things that we have to do. Yes, and also outreach and event support is limited. There's 3 of us. Running big events like we have been, or just most events, like you need more than 3 people, and volunteers are hard. So I have been making some small structure adjustments based on some of these problems within my current budget, and I have improved some of the workflow, and I want to share that with you and what I found. This is a video, watch it at some point. It just shows you how many people were at the last event. It was awesome. A big takeaway I want to really show is that good events take time, but these great events, like these big ones with a lot of moving parts that are very successful and a big hit in the community, they take a lot of time. But as you will see, like I do think that they are worth it. And I got so much positive community feedback from them. How much time? You might be wondering. So this event had 4 events within one event. So there are a lot of moving pieces. We had an activism art gallery, the yard sale that Jenna took the lead on, the makers market with over 30 vendors and also included the live music, and a free market, which also had the food on wheels drive in here as well. I partnered with 2 internal programs, Jenna and Carly, and then also 5 external organizations to pull this off. So I had to ensure everyone was working together on a tight schedule, had everything they needed. So I began planning this 6 weeks out with a 5-week project timeline. I outlined goals for each week, and it took about a minimum of 10 hours per week of my time to do this event. And on the week of, I dedicated over 60 hours to this event alone, prepping everything. We did goodie baskets, we did gift cards, like there's a lot of things that went into the decor as well. So from my time alone, this event took 110 hours to accomplish over the course of 6 weeks. However, compared to some of our other large scale events we put on, this event cost under $10,000. I think the final was around $7,000. But I wanted to emphasize that we pulled this all together by pulling from all of our different resources and really working as a team, both as a community and internally. So that's kind of what I dive in here. Like, how did I make the time? I had a lot of internal and external support. So my team, our team, and then also Thriftopia was really great to work with. She did a lot of managing the vendors portion and the live music, which is a whole job in of itself. I did like the parking schedule and the decor and things like that. Key takeaways. So we take a lot of support. They take a lot of time for execution, and event planning and management is something that my team specifically has really excelled at in the past year. And if we want to continue providing events like these to the community, then we really should be thinking about dedicating more time to resources to making them possible. So this is just a visual of kind of how I've been planning these events. So starting big with the event, moving into who does what, then marketing, decor, outreach, week of prep, and then day of. So that's kind of how like the timeline goes. So growth on the horizon, but kind of already happening within the current scope of my budget. So with my 2 interns leaving in June, I don't want them to, but they are. We are starting to use our remaining funds from some of the capital projects we haven't been able to get to help hire more people. So same 2 roles that I saw were really successful, the on-site event intern and social media intern, which were also a really big success in the application process I saw, plus 2 new interns, the data intern and after school program intern. And then proposed future structure. So I'll go into like data intern, after school program intern. Basically, I think they kind of speak for themselves. But essentially, what I would like to propose is having an event coordinator to take that 50% of time that I'm using. So that's the emails and the event maintenance. Having an after school program coordinator to run the after school program 5 days a week. That's walking the kids from Ivy Elementary to here, staying with them throughout the duration of the class, and then making sure they get picked up by their parents. That's a whole job in of itself. And then the 3 interns. So the on-site event intern, social media intern, I already have, with the addition of a data intern. So what does this community event structure and facilities manager mean? So I want to show you this first. So like you saw from my first pie chart, the 50% of my time going to these things that can be delegated would go to the event coordinator. And with that extra time, I will be focusing on taking some support or providing some support to my team, right? I want to take on more event planning within the entire district, not just in the community spaces. So some of these things I'm already taking a lot of, I'm already doing. For example, Halloween, town halls, community meetings, those are things that Sydney does, but I can help give her support so she can focus on other things. So I can help take some of these details off the plate. Continued support for the yard sale, the market, helping in any way I can with the compost collective, Deltopia, and then things that the community really likes, like these vegan food fairs. And facilities management, more time for some of these capital projects. Like I was just meeting with Jonathan today about things that need to be done just in this room alone. You know, it needs facelift, for lack of a better word. So this is what that event coordinator's time would look like if they were to take on that responsibility. Emails, event maintenance, scheduling, on-site event support, and then user tours. So what is this? So this is where I'm showing this extra 50% where it's going. What does this look like for you all? This change in responsibility. It would mean a yearly event calendar, so monthly and quarterly events with room for weekly additions, including all of the project deadlines planned out in the beginning of the year. Internal event committees. So like we said, we need a lot of internal support. So I would be pulling together all the programs that would want to be involved in whichever event that we're doing and see how we can work together. More event support in general for managing event timelines, sourcing staff, creating maps, finding local partners and vendors that I've developed really good relationships for, and then also coordinating all of those day of details. Increased event capacity overall. Oh, let me share my screen. Pause. Which screen? You have so many tabs open. Sorry. Thank you. Okay. More time, less outsourcing, I think is important for event planning needs, and more room in our budget to support local businesses and organizations, and more time to focus on facility management, maintenance, and projects, county communication, and overall utilizing events budget to support more than just community spaces, but all of the things that our team is doing. So I do know that I'm working with one of the largest budgets already, but even for example, like I was really able to help this yard sale a lot and provide a lot of my funding to some of the things that we were doing. And I do think that would be helpful across the district as well. So I kind of already explained these two roles, but here's them again. And then the data intern, to be specific about what I need from them, they would be assisting in data collection, cleaning the data from the calendar. That took a lot of time, organizing Excel sheets, extracting the data from the calendar website, tracking KPIs, helping me create some of these visualizations, and taking the lead on some of the outreach that we do for surveys. So this is the combined total annual cost with an increase of around 50,000. So I want to talk about what that would grant our team. So improved user communication and calendar management response times, more time and assistance for data analysis, feedback, and implementation, improved reservation process tracking and quality assurance, drastic increase in outreach and event capacity, time for more thorough facilities management, and ability to take on more district-wide events and planning, a sustainable after-school program, and overall less overtime, 40 hours a week, and burnout. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation. Any directors have questions?
Yep, I have questions, but I'll
Yeah.
go last.
So did I hear you correctly? You said that you took for capital projects that we've been unable to get to, you took the money that had been allocated towards that and you used it to hire people?
Yeah, just to clarify, it wasn't that.
Okay.
We underspent the intern budget by a massive amount, like we did for all the programs.
Okay.
Like, every program did.
My bad, sorry.
Okay.
We also didn't spend the capital budget yet either, but we haven't spent our salary budgets either.
Okay, great. I was like, wait, what did you?
No, I didn't do anything.
All right. So I want to say that I think that the work you're doing is great. I've heard nothing but extremely positive feedback about the work that you are doing and about, like, very particularly how strong of a person you are doing this work. I want to separate that entirely from the thing I'm about to say, which is I don't honestly think a lot of the work that you're doing is something that we should be doing. And so that's something, of course, that it's been my thing, oftentimes. But it sounds like you're spending not just a drastic amount of just time coordinating with external parties, but actually using internal budget in order to make these external events function correctly. And that's where it starts to feel like we are just operating other people's events. And whether that's something where I've got questions about this, about the coordination with Thriftopia and the extent to which we're essentially lending part of our budget towards an external, like helping like some external organization. But I also and that's even then separate from just my general complaints that I don't really feel like our district is supposed to be working on events. That that the organization locally that is supposed to be working on events is the Recreation and Parks District, and that we explicitly were removed from having that kind of power. Because the fact that we have a community center, to me, does not mean that we are in a position where we should be allocating large amounts of funding and apparently continually increasing amounts of funding towards operating and running events. That is not to say that I don't think the events worked awesome. And or that I've heard anything but good feedback about the events. I just don't think that it is our place, nor our an appropriate usage of our budget to be running these events.
Yeah, and I'd like to, can I speak on it just a little
Yes,
bit?
yeah. And by the way,
So,
by the way, I should also say, like, I'm kind of occasionally looking at you. I tried to realize I was doing that, and
It's
I look at
okay.
the board and everything, because I'm not this is not pinning anything on you.
Oh, I
You
hear
were
you.
given a job and you executed it amazingly.
Thank
Again,
you.
I have heard nothing but extremely positive feedback about the things that you are doing. And so I do not feel that you are in the hot seat on anything that I say. And of course, I'm also a minority opinion as far as I know on this. But this is something that I'm saying to the board as decision makers about what it is that our priorities are, and possibly somewhat to your management of relation to how budget is allocated. But there's nothing But you
I hear
should
you.
not have to
No,
feel
it's
defensive.
okay.
on it.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I hear what you're saying. And this was kind of my thought process behind it. So when I'm working with an external vendor, I'm working with them because they have a very good, strong standing relationship with the community. And that's why I was really drawn to partnering with them on this event. All of those vendors are all Isla Vista locals. Like they all have priority, and normally they have to pay to be a part of something like this. And when we brought them together with the idea of drawing this foot traffic and creating this event, we wanted them to have the opportunity to do that for free and to have this big community celebration of our vendors, our local businesses, to be able to provide that in one place for the community to come together and to build them up. So it's not like we're trying to take away from one thing or another. I was really trying to use this event to support all of the great things our community is already doing. So like these markets have been a great hit, and I know that IVR Parks District is working on something with them too. And I also have been talking to them about working on it together because I think that it could be a really great thing. And I know the community really loves it. So yeah, I guess that's my point. In doing an event like this, it's really about trying to put our resources back into the community and supporting what they're already doing, and giving them a place to do it and invite everyone to come celebrate. And really the idea behind having this event in correspondence was the yard sale, to draw people in to buy things at multiple levels. So we had things that were, you know, at the market, which I would almost say is like the top level as far as how much they are. And then it trickles down to the yard sale, which is even more affordable, which then trickles down to the free room, which is even more accessible. And we have these trading and we have resources, we had Dinkles. So it's just like, it kind of creates this like tiered system where everyone is welcome and everyone has a space here. And that's kind of what I took from like community, like bringing everyone together. So that was my justification. I understand that there's like some things that the board needs to decide on, like, you know, what direction you want to go, but that's kind of where this idea came and sprouted from, I should say.
So I have a couple questions and some commentary. One of the, first of all, great presentation. You guys are so freaking impressive. I mean, the staff is so great. I love your data. And then when I saw you need a data intern, I'm like, yes, I understand that. Because you have so much good data. I love how you pie chart your time. That's super cool. It really gives us a sense of kind of, you know, what you're spending your day on and that kind of thing. So I have a comment about, you had a really big event. And it wasn't one thing, it was like 4 different things. It was a lot. And I just wonder if there was any time in that process that you went, maybe this is too big, too much, to everything for a first event like of this nature. That's one thing I wonder, because it seems to be a pattern that we're getting at the board of, we're being asked to support more funding for more programs, which is all great, except that I just wonder, you know, sometimes I think it's better to do a few things really well than a lot of things, probably also well, but also it's coming with an increased cost. I mean, every entity, stop laughing at me.
It's the UC connection.
Is it? Okay. So anyways, I just and then just to kind of piggyback what Jay said is that I know that the IVRPD was planning a similar kind of market, and I just think that there's so much opportunity, given that they do have a recreation person that's been hired, to jointly do programming together and not think that you all need to go at it on your own. Because I think there is a desire to do some more joint activity. So I'd really like to encourage that. Yeah. I wanted to ask about I wanted to ask about the after school program. Is that something that we're going to get more information on? Okay.
We're doing a pilot. We're hoping to do a pilot. We're making it if all the pieces can come together this spring. And we've worked with our legal team to make sure we've complied with everything. The way we're doing our pilot, we actually don't need to follow most of the rules, because it's once a week, 1 day.
Yeah.
And if we use our own employees, that's a carve out in the law that says if a local government uses their own employees, like we have the intern to walk kids over, then you don't have to comply with this much. So we're doing a pilot just to learn
Thank
more.
you. So under your model, you would have an after-school program coordinator, would not be an intern. It would be an employee of the district.
Right, and the
Okay.
reason why is so the intern right now would be managing 1 day a week, whereas the coordinator would be doing 5.
Okay,
Because
good.
the point was to do like after school care.
Yeah.
But for the pilot program, we only have the 1 day, so we don't need someone that's gonna be there that much time.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have consistency and continuity for that position, because it's something that parents are going to really rely on. So to the extent that you have someone who's this is a commitment for them, that's gonna be really important. And then I have a question to Jonathan. Have you given any thought to beefing up the community engagement office to be able to take some pressure off Ivy Beautiful, community spaces, and their social media and and that kind of work that's being done? Because if you have different programs and they all have a person that's doing social media, that kind of thing, it's like, can't that be aggregated more in another, not to say it'd be the existing personnel, but more people in that, as opposed to having individual entities doing that work? I just wonder about the efficiencies of that.
For them, we talked about it in our
Yeah.
staff meeting last week, and we also talked about it in the finance committee
Oh, you
last
did?
week as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
like, that's the next thing in the agenda, is that the finance committee is recommending a full-time coordinator under Sydney to
Yeah.
take on, because she had put it part-time or full-time in her presentation, but the finance committee went with the full-time so that they could take on more outreach work. I mean, the program manager still has to be involved because there's like content specific,
Yeah.
the person not working directly and won't know everything, but yeah, that is the direction the finance committee is moving in. So that's the next presentation, is centralizing more. Yeah.
The other thing that I love about both your presentations is that you're realizing something that you start to realize as you're in the work world, is that you need more thinking time and you need more of a kind of a hierarchical structure, that people that you can delegate to, so you can do kind of a higher level work. And that's the sign of a maturation of an organization. And so I just love that you all are, organically coming to that, realizing that in order to be better, you need to get people underneath you to be able to delegate some of the things that are don't require a lot of, expertise.
Yeah, they established the processes already.
Yeah,
So
no, I
now you
love
can
that. It's
Give it to
yeah.
someone else.
Yeah, so it's very impressive. I've heard nothing but good things. And I just love when I come into the community and there's always something going on. And the space is just so welcoming. And so kudos to all your hard work and your team.
Thank you. And I do want to speak to your point on like, okay, why did I put so many things in one event? Because I understand where you're coming from there. But honestly, I have been watching these events, and when I try to do them separately, so for example, the art gallery, I get some foot traffic. Even if I do a ton of outreach, I don't get a ton. Like if I do all of these things separately, like Vegan Food Fair, I got a lot of foot traffic, but I got nowhere near as much as this event when I had Dinkles. Same food vendor, coming back with free food. So I'm kind of seeing this pattern on if I follow the trends of what the community's already really likes and put the things that we're doing among it. Like having an event with multiple things going on caters to a large audience. Like maybe I'm just going for the art gallery. Maybe I'm just going for the music. Maybe I'm going for, it kind of gives people options. And I think with a community as diverse as ours, it's really important to do things that appeal to everyone. And so that way we can get everyone in the same place and together.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is really valuable, especially when we have such a wide demographic that we do.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And then there's economies of scale that you're putting out the same amount of effort for this great event. You would put out more effort for 4 separate events. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I had a quick, hopefully short question. If you could scroll to the data intern, I was wondering if you had planned to make that particular role at a slightly higher wage per hour, given it's it could be more of a skilled asset kind of a thing. I get inquiries about that at UCSD, and libraries don't have a lot of data experience until recently. And I was kind of expressing the same thing, that this is something that could be filled in a local community. There are plenty of intelligent folks here that we can pull on, especially in university. So I'm wondering if you're considering, I'm not trying to throw in more dollars, but I feel like it is a skilled position that we might want to get a little bit higher wage for.
We have different intern levels, actually. So the mid-level intern is 17, but there's a one level above for more advanced interns for 20.
Perfect.
So,
Cool. That's good. That's good to know we have that.
and that might be another area we centralize. these
That's what I was
data.
thinking too.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
You mentioned the trouble with finding people on day of event. Do we have any partnerships with, like local high schools to have people who live in the community who maybe are in high school that maybe need work? No?
I don't
I'm
think
just
so,
thinking
not
about
yet.
something
It's a
like
Good
that.
idea.
Yeah, I can definitely look into that. It's a good idea.
Yeah,
With the teen center. I think we just
Right,
said
like-
that, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, partnership with the teen center, yeah, to do events. That might be helpful.
All right, we'll all go to public comment if there's any public comment or questions.
First of all, thank you for the job you're doing. It's fantastic. And I have to add that Sanaya and Jacob do a great job. They're not just good friends, they do a fantastic job. I'm not just saying that because they're friends, but they really are very engaging. Great team. And I'm sad to hear they're going.
Me too.
Are
they graduating?
Yes, Sanaya's
Yeah.
actually graduating early and Jacob's already been graduated, but he's moving.
Oh,
Yeah,
sadly.
he's moving away. So I love the food, the vegan food fairs there. And I'm not even vegan. My better half is. I still eat fish, but yeah, Director Gresham mentioned talking to the youth program, or the youth program director and events program director, Sophia,
Mhm.
at IVRPD, and I think that would be a great partnership of sorts. She's fantastic, first of all.
Mhm. I have worked with her. She is great.
She is just absolutely fantastic, and I think that would be it would be great as a member of the community to see more events involving both entities involved with each other, doing things, because it would definitely alleviate some of your budget constraints, and it would definitely alleviate some of theirs. If you combine together, it would definitely be very effective financially and for the community in general. But I look forward to seeing more events, and I was at the Ever Forward, Never Backwards event. That was great.
Yeah.
And again, the vegan food fairs are fantastic. I walked away with 2 bags of stuff. It was great. Saw a lot of friends there. I'm seriously gonna miss Sanae and Jacob. They're awesome folks. Thank you for giving them the opportunity. They're fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I'll happily tell them about your positive feedback as well. And yes, to the note on the Parks District, like I would like to reiterate, I am in like communication with them about this. I don't feel comfortable saying what, because I know that they need to talk to their board and get a lot of things approved before I share anything, but it's not a connection that I am ignoring. It is something that I would very much like to continue pursuing. So I'm just kind of waiting back to hear what their decision is on that.
Well, Kimberly Kiefer is fantastic to work with too. She's just very effective, very straightforward. She, her job, she's got a very tough job, but she does it very well. So you have a lot of support from her.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Jenna?
I was just gonna say you're doing just an amazing job. I can't believe what you have built this program into, and the amount of people I've seen enjoying the events that you help to put on. It's very inspiring, and it reminds me how much residents value these community events. And yeah, there is a lot going on at the Makers Market yard sale, but it like came together so beautifully, and there were so many creative people there just loving it, and people of all demographics coming together and having such a fun time and just interacting with each other. It was amazing. So you're doing such a good job.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, and I would also like to comment that I feel like for both of you, we have these programs that barely existed a year ago.
So impressive.
And it's so impressive that you not only have done so much, but you've really had the vision to think about what kind of structure you need to be supportive and carry them into the future. And then I have a very strong bias against unpaid overtime. So I really would like for us to, manage our resources in a way that we're not exploiting our staff, because I do think that's exploitation.
Thank you so much.
All right, yeah, we'll continue the board comment. I think I had a question or a comment. I'm trying to remember. So you talked a little bit about like answering emails and types of questions that can be very simplified or very easy answers. And I'm wondering if we have that in other programs that already exist, if we have like these types of questions that are just very layup, and if we have any kind of like FAQ or a community like thing. That's something that we use a lot in libraries. We use like a program called Live Answers, where if you answer a question, then it gets cycled back and it lives there. And so if somebody asks the same question, it populates to them. And so then so you just have to make sure it's up to date as things change over time. I'm sure we would be on top of that. But I'm wondering if we, need to consider some of these kind of like more technological tools to assist with our staff time. I'm sure this might apply to other programs we have.
Yeah, I love the idea. I do want to say that some of the questions I get are very clearly already on our website.
Yeah.
But I do think that would be helpful. I really do.
100%.
Yeah.
But you would be surprised.
Oh,
You'd
yeah.
be very
Oh,
surprised.
I do that 4 hours a week. My JD is literally what you're talking about. So, yeah. And then some comments. I'm trying to remember what my comment was, but I'm just really happy with this. I'm really glad that you did tie things where you could to board goals. I'm also really glad that you made an emphasis on looking to the future of how we can spend more of your time on the facilities management and upkeep, because we do have but we rent 2 aging facilities that are our bread and butter of these growing programs that we need, and they do need a facelift. And especially with as much as the community clearly appreciates them, without the facelift, they're very deserving of that. So I'm glad that you put that time in there, and I hope to see more of those like goals and ambitions on that side of things. Yeah, thank you so much. Do any other directors have comments?
Yeah, one thing I'll say really quick is you guys did a really good job of having a whole area of goals on her area, which all the other programs actually don't have the same way. So that's something.
We have a task on April
That's something
22nd.
for our retreat to consider.
Hopefully sooner than April
One
22nd.
program has
Oh,
like
really?
a lot of goals, and the other ones.
Well, I'll
don't
talk about that later.
Oh,
the same way.
interesting.
Not the
Okay.
same way, like they're interspersed, like Jenna's program.
Yeah, Jenna was
NFO.
doing some stretching over there.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up. That's something I was going to mention later in my report to the board about the retreat. And I think it brought up part of what you discussed, Director Freeman. I remembered another thing I thought of. So with the idea of like our interaction with our after school program, when I was trying to like look at this Isla Vista library idea in the last couple of weeks and asking people in my realm about that kind of thing, some of the basic questions that came up were, do we have a plan for after school programming? And I was very delighted to say, even at that point, that, this is a program we've been exploring completely independently of opening a library. And I think that in the future, and some of the things that Jordan mentioned in public comment, that will be a very important need for this community and Isla Vista at large, is how that intersects. And I think that that's a place where a possible future budget and a current budget will start to overlap, and a greater need will be met. And I'm really excited that you already laying the groundwork, and we have someone who's going to be collecting the data and making a case for us, because that's all going to go into the ecosystem we're working on here.
Awesome, thank you.
All right.
Can I make one more comment?
Yes, please.
I don't know where this comment fits, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. So we have 2 really great presentations tonight from Ivy Beautiful and from Community Spaces. And it really, both of you did such a great job of really describing your programs, what you do, and kind of what your vision is for the future. But I just want to point out to Jonathan that, good staff don't just happen, right? And so I know that there's a lot of management going behind the scenes, that you're giving guidance and support and helping staff, and you're just doing such a great job. And I just really wanted to just acknowledge that when we get these presentations and we see the work that's happening with the different departments that, you know, I know that you're behind that and making it happen. So I just want to just really acknowledge all your hard work.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Is that sufficient advice for the finance and for staff in general?
Did we give any advice?
I gave some advice.
Finance committee members will have to.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to
Yeah.
parse out what we just said. Parse.
Okay, well then let's move on to our next agenda item, 4.7, the community engagement budget update.
All right, so I'll let our finance committee chair add anything here, but let me pull up what the, just to reiterate our process, we do our presentations, the finance committee looks at the, the needs and what our current finances are and sees what possible good ideas to fund would be. But none of these are final. These are just like, we're gonna put these all together and then try to combine them and make sure they all fit. But what the finance committee landed on for the community engagement area is we keep our community engagement director, obviously. And the major change, the only change really, is the addition of the community engagement coordinator role, but at a full-time level. So, and we put it at a $25 per hour level for coordinator. So it's not a program manager. That's the main cost. It says there's a $78,000 increase. That's $73,000 of the increase. The regular budget is staying the same. And the other increase that's in here is the annual raise and COLA that we would project to give. So we took that into account at least to make sure we don't under budget. But yeah, that's
So so it's $50,000, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's is equal to $25 an hour?
Yeah.
And can you just explain what the coordinator's gonna do? Or
Yeah.
have we
and
already heard this?
It was at the last meeting.
Oh, Lord, when that happens.
No, it's okay, but it's essentially taking on all the day-to-day social media tasks, like
Mhm,
making the flyers, posting them,
mhm.
doing the tabling, arranging for the canvassing and the tabling to happen, like getting the packets ready for people. Basically all the the nitty-gritty of the outreach that we do. So and we talked about a full-time role to support more programs.
So how does that person fit into what Maya's asking for?
Yeah.
Well, increased role for a person doing social media.
So they would take that on, there's
The coordinator would,
yeah,
Uh-huh.
right now there's an intern doing 10 hours of work.
yeah.
So that we would incorporate that work into the coordinator. I mean, the events that happen in the community center are core function for
Right, yeah.
CSD. So we would just have them make the flyers, have just there'll be a relationship there. And we have a community engagement meeting every couple of weeks where we discuss each program's community engagement needs.
Yeah.
And so that meeting will just become more impactful because there'll be someone there to, we'll be assigning work to that person to take on.
So will there still be then, well, I guess what I'm asking is then, will community spaces have a social media intern after you have a coordinator?
I think that's something we need to figure out. I think
Okay,
that the direction we're moving in is
And I
less
think that's what the finance
Yeah.
committee thought, that we liked this model,
Yeah.
that we would centralize some of those functions and have them, spread more broadly over all the programs. But that, the devil's in the details. We need to, figure it out
Yeah.
with all the programs, if that's really gonna help people.
And also just something that we've discussed on staff too, is that some of our programs are more niche than others that have a lot of niche information that would need to be communicated. But also I don't remember my interns have the specific social media, but then there's a lot of shared tasks too. So we would just need to keep in mind that if we were to centralize this role, all of those shared, there's going to be a missing gap. That person probably isn't going to come help me, run some of the events,
Right.
or even
Yeah.
just some of the day-to-day, the community wellness check. So there are some things that we're losing out on. So we'll need to just keep that in mind, I would say.
We'll map it all out. We'll map, yeah.
And how did you come up with that wage? That's not a, I mean, 50,000 for it's full time?
Yeah, I mean, that was the wage we had for our program managers previously before we made them into program, we adjusted the wages to match the market.
Mhm.
But we could look into the wage more.
I guess you'll know when you go
Yeah,
and see what.
but that's the level we had previously.
It'd be interesting to look at City of Goleta's, the PIO, and then there is a community engagement like specialist. It'd be interesting to see what, because that's the kind of thing they do,
Well,
to see what is comparable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did it a little bit on the fly. The original proposal was on $20 and we said, oh, well, 20 for sure won't work.
Yeah.
Let's at least do 25.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think
we'll
that
do
might
some
be
more
worth
research.
looking at.
But yeah, so there's no action to take, just informing the board, but this is the kind of feedback we want at this point. So we can go back to the finance committee and make sure these numbers all fit.
Yeah, I never understand the process year to year, but I do think that it's important to really, maybe it was okay, maybe it was in the last meeting, but good Lord, I can't even remember what happened yesterday. So, okay, so it would just be helpful to know like what the coordinator duties are and kind of how you envision that, just explain it a little bit more as opposed to just a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Thank you.
We can attach the extra.
Dr. Freeman.
So, my question is, I know because of the way that we're funded, we actually generally get more money every year. Do you know how much money more we have this year?
I do. Do you want me to present that now? Like
I feel it's just like a number. I mean,
it's about 150,000 extra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You gotta thank all those utility companies.
I know.
Okay,
Right, do any other directors have questions?
no.
All right, I'll go to public comment, see if there's any public comment on this update regarding the community engagement budget. All right, I see no public comment. Yeah, it seems like that's sufficient information.
Budget's a long process, so.
Perfect. Cool. All right, let's move on to item 4.8, the electric bike equipment and maintenance budget for April to June of 2023.
Great, so this is a critical need that at this point, it wasn't something we budgeted for in last year's budget process, just because this was such a new area. We only had one bike at the time and it had only been around for 8 months. But we've learned that these bikes do need constant care and emergency care and some training for our employees to better maintain them. And they're the most expensive things we own. So this proposal is for two things. It's for the maintenance budget for the next 3 months. That's not currently in our budget. With the person we've been using intermittently, he's been, we've been doing small jobs here and there with him, but this is to get him on for a monthly and emergency basis. And then also for the tools that we need for these bikes that we did, we went and did research and that's what we're asking for, $51.70 to help maintain the bikes. The tools are a one-time purchase, obviously, and then the maintenance is, for 3 months, that's the cost.
What kind of bikes are they?
They're electric bikes.
Yeah.
They're
Like
called
brand.
pedicabs.
Oh, yeah, how
Yeah,
cute.
okay, yeah, so
Oh, we should go ride in those.
you're always welcome to come check them out.
Really?
Yeah, there's a green.
And I wouldn't have to pick up
Right.
trash or compost or anything?
I mean, maybe. But yeah, we use them Jenny's team uses them a lot for all the beautification work, and then the compost team uses them for the compost work. So they get used, and they're definitely, that's why we need maintenance, because they get used so much that
Where do they get charged? Do we have chargers?
At the center.
they're in charge of the center. We're working on other things. There's like storage issues. We're trying to make sure we can store them better and charge them better. But that'll be another meeting where we come back on storage issues with the bikes.
Yeah.
But they're great tools, they're great assets, and we can say we're 100% electric at IVCSD. But I guess we need to take care of our fleet, and we haven't made budget
Or
for that
otherwise
yet.
Carly is our fleet mechanic.
That's right. Yeah, Carly's been filling the role of
mechanic.
fixing the bikes, or like being the person who people ask about the bikes. And, yeah.
Okay, so
Not
moved.
I'm getting tired.
All right. Okay, I don't see any questions. I'll go to the public if there's any comments on Yes.
Well, as a certified Shimano mechanic, I've been racing bikes since 1973, and I still race bikes, and I still work on them. And, you know, the thing about an electric bike is that you have a higher power output. So the maintenance, basically what I'm trying to say is there's gonna be a lot more wear and tear on the parts. So if you're gonna budget for not only, you cannot only just budget for tools, you gotta budget for parts as well. So it's gonna give you that little bit of a heads up on that. You know, parts for an e-bike, they vary in range of price. Tools are basic. You can get part tools. You can get tools at Ace Hardware that'll be satisfactory. For certain specialized things like bottom bracket removal and things like that, you need a special wrench for removing like a free wheel or a cog or something like that. But basic tools should do it. Screwdriver, crescent wrench, 50 millimeter. And most of these bikes also have quick release hubs, so that takes away the need for wrenches for taking off the wheels as well. So I just did volunteer. I volunteered to tune up all the bicycles for IVRPD that they use for the bike tours and stuff like that about a week ago, and it was about an hour of my time. It was just fun to do, you know. And the thing is that with an e-bike, it's a little more involved. You know, also you got to keep extra batteries around because those batteries do kind of go out after a while, especially after extensive usage when you're hauling a load like those big baskets. So just the caveat that I offer here is that, you know, the parts budget, once you get the tools, you're fine. It's the parts budget that's going to be fluctuated. So just keep an eye on that. And yeah, it's a, you know, using bikes to get around ID is a lot better than using a car. So I speak with experience.
Thank you for your comments. I'll probably come to you with some bike help soon, Henry.
Come on by.
All right, I'll take this back to the board. We have a motion.
I already did it.
Motion. We have a second on that
So exactly
motion.
what's the motion, right? Oh, we're approving, we're not just providing more
the
feedback.
electric bike.
I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Deschler and a second by Freeman. Jonathan, can I have a roll call on this motion?
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Schultz, Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Chavez,
Yes.
Director Dashwood.
Yes, Kirsten's here says. Yes, yes, yes.
All right, the motion passes 5-0-0-2. All right, so that concludes our discussion and action items, and we'll move on to section 5, reports. Item 5.1, reports from members of the board. Do any directors, members of the board have reports or things they would like to share? All right, well, I'll start with something that I want to share. So I already had some comment on the neighbors that are facing tenancy, eviction, and those specific things. So I won't go into those details here. But one thing that is important to our board specifically that's come up a lot in today's meeting is looking at the future and specifically our board goals. We've heard about them in a number of weeks, and we've been trying to schedule a retreat. We've had some difficulty with that.
Don't look at me. It was out of my control.
I'll need to talk to the manager.
Yeah, that's the man.
Yeah, so hopefully that we can all like make some adjustments. And one thing I was picking Jonathan's brain about is maybe if we could as directors take a day off during the middle of the week in order to do a daytime retreat, like on a Wednesday or a Thursday or Friday, something like that. I'm wondering if that's more amenable to people's schedules. We don't have to have the answer here. Jonathan and I will be reaching out, but I think it's very important for us as a board to get to our retreat process ASAP. We see tons of requests keep coming up for expanding programs. We have to be very strategic in which ways that we expand. We can't expand everything. And there's plenty of things to plan. And like we've heard earlier, not every program has an assigned board goal. So I think it's good stewardship as directors that we all look to make some time in our normal lives to make this retreat happen. So hopefully we can get that done during April. Yeah.
So April 22nd is not.
Oh yeah, the
happening.
reason the April 22nd doesn't work is it only works for one staff member, which is me, but
Oh.
our legal team and the rest of the staff
Yeah.
and Wait,
We
so
want them
would it
there.
be- Yeah,
Does it work for the staff to be there on a weekday?
more.
I mean, because, well, like, for example, Maya, she's not, then that means she's not gonna be doing her work. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'd have to, as long as
Come
it's
in
in
and out,
advance.
yeah.
Yeah, in and out. That's what we would have done if it was like, Sydney was gonna be tabling. She could have
Mhm,
come in and
got
out,
it.
but not everybody was gonna be here, so. And our legal team wasn't available either for the 22nd, so.
I'm super down to do it during the week. I really am, but I do have some travel coming up, so we gotta knock it in, lock it in.
Okay, well, I'm gonna make an ask that directors, share their schedules as they're changing with our general manager, so we can hopefully like work together and pick a time that works for all of us.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's my plea to everyone here. Because that is very important to me. It's also really fun. This is way more fun than any other kind of work retreat that I'm sure that
What
we're
are we
familiar
gonna do
with.
that's fun? Is there gonna be a fun component to
There'll be a
this?
fun.
We
Okay,
get to
good.
talk like this for
We
many
can ride the
hours.
bikes. I would really like to
We
ride
could,
bikes.
we could possibly
We
get
could
that
ride the
done.
bikes and then meet and then take a break and ride the bikes.
We can
Yeah.
arrange for
Okay.
that, yeah.
I think that's good, yeah,
You can
to
even
have
sit
a,
in the back of the bike and be ridden around.
Okay, I'm down for that. I already have electric bikes. I can man. I have something to mention.
yes, please.
So, the university has been having a weekly meeting to discuss Deltopia planning, and Jonathan is part of that. I just wanted to mention that at the last meeting, we'll have one tomorrow, at the last Wednesday meeting, we had a presentation by the Ivy Foot Patrol, by Lieutenant Tesla. And one of the things that came up from there is a recommendation from him to put fencing on Camino Mallorca. So I wanted to mention that here. Should I have not mentioned
No,
that?
that's
Okay, that's the kind of thing to mention. So if that happens, it would be something that the university, it's a request to the university.
Do we have
Do you
any,
need something for your glasses?
No, I was
Okay.
asking. I was
Oh.
gonna ask you a
I
question.
wanted to, so do we as a district have specific say in whether or not there's a fence there or not? No,
Not,
because in a
IVCSD
previous
property.
year, when I was newly a director, I did get a call from the county as a neighbor, as I was a neighbor of 6-8 and also a director on whether or not I felt it was necessary. And I thought it wasn't at that point, but
I just want to understand, so what's meant by fencing on Camino Mallorca? So this is
Mhm.
like fencing that's between in a little like forest
Yes.
area to prevent people from going from the campus faculty housing area into.
from
directly-
parking in that, just from parking in that little
In the-
dirt space
Oh,
along the eucalyptus.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I wasn't very clear.
yeah,
I'm
it's-
sorry.
it
Okay,
just stops
And
the
it's been
parking.
there
Stops,
before.
okay.
It's been there before.
I don't actually go over there.
Yeah, it's really to prevent, to make it less convenient for people who don't have parking, who are out of town people
Okay.
coming to the community from having a place to park. But our fencing folks have told us that people know how to, it's a very common tool to open the fence. And so it's not hard to remove the fence and park there, but it is a deterrent. It's a
It's
it's
to
a
prevent
bit of a
parking. there.
deterrent.
I just think of sometimes the fencing on El Colegio, which is like to prevent people from crossing the street.
No,
So
no,
I was
no.
like, well,
Yeah.
what are we doing with fencing? This
Yeah,
is
the
a-
university has moved away from fencing. I think fencing is down probably 90%. There's just
Hmm.
not going to be fencing on campus. Obviously not on El Colegio. But what happened was that the city of Goleta has their parking restrictions in place, and they have asked the university to put parking on Phelps Road to discourage people from parking on Phelps, from moving out of their areas of Barcadero 1 and 2, where the permit program is in place, and then moving onto that property. So they've asked us to fence that. And then as part of that, they consulted with the lieutenant about other fencing. And that's when the question came up about Camino Mallorca.
So the city of Goleta is worried about the parking impact and they want,
Out of towners.
but if there's less parking in IV, then wouldn't more people park in the city of Goleta?
Not if you have fencing and not if you have enforcement in the areas adjacent to the university and Isla Vista.
Yeah, but it sounds like this fence would like only inconvenience visitors and neighbors who park in Isla Vista and more so than. people parking in Goleta. Yeah,
The Camino America.
yeah, Camino Mallorca.
You guys probably shouldn't discuss this.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
detail.
So,
Not
yeah,
Brian, yeah.
just hear my report,
Yeah.
acknowledge it, and let's move on.
Got
We
it.
can talk offline.
Yeah, no, we probably shouldn't talk offline. I appreciate, well, for the brownout.
We can't talk offline?
As long as you don't form a majority.
We're not, we can't, we're only two
Yeah.
people.
You're a hug for us.
Thank you.
Sorry, gotta get to my dog.
Oh, yes, that's important. I just wanted to report about the Camino America fencing. That's it.
Thank you for that report. It's good that, I'm glad to know that that's happening. There was some other, go ahead.
This reminded me that, so I've noticed recently, I live in the frat area, and apparently there's like some kind of professional party organizer that has been operating some of the frats in that area. And I don't know if it's related to, I was talking to Jonathan, he'd heard about some kind of like app, maybe we talked about, that Poppin, that apparently has been, so I'm actually.
Poppin?
That's what he says.
It's an app?
I don't know about that one. I know that the people who are doing this stuff across the street from me is something called, they call them Ivy parties. They've been charging for parties and things. So I've been learning new things about this. And for what it's worth, I'm actually concerned that Deltopia this year might be kind of big. We'll see.
Well, that's what IVs, yeah, foot patrol, thanks. Interesting. Poppin', yeah, we have heard about these parties. Yeah,
Paid party.
paid parties. Poppin', I'm gonna download that. I'm gonna check it out. Just intelligence.
I now follow Ivy parties and Ivy streets that goes around apparently in photographing all different parties on Instagram.
Really?
This big party scene is back.
Yeah.
Are there any other reports from the board? I had another independent report from that, but I can't remember right now. Must not be important. in this
You'll think
timeline.
of it at 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's move on to our reports from standing and ad hoc committees.
I think you've heard them all.
Yeah. Well, policy committee, you want to give the update, Jay? You want to just-
See,
We had a substantial meeting.
yeah, we were talking about employee compensation and not compensation, but like employee like benefit plans and things relating to
And
yeah, possible dependent care and also the like
Family
maternity
medical
leave.
leave, maternity,
And
family medical leave.
yeah,
That's it.
I completely did not think, I'm like, and I realized, I should have realized it's on the agenda every time, but I should give it an update, but I did not think through this.
we'll have the policies at the next meeting.
Yeah,
They're not
that'd be
ready yet.
good. And I should report from the finance committee, just as of the year to date, our revenues are coming in stronger than we expected, and our spending is less than we had planned.
That's
So
awesome.
We're in a very strong financial state at this point in time.
Yay. Good job.
I'll report that hopefully the library ad hoc committee will get to meet soon. I sent some information to those folks. So hopefully we can make a plan to discuss, but I know we have a lot of irons in the fire right now, so it doesn't have to be as urgent. All right.
Okay, I'm remembering some of this now. Yeah, so we've got, so we've been continuing discussing the public art policy, which will, but we did not actually have an opportunity to see the updated version of that because that's the legal people were going to be thinking that they were only needing it for our next meeting. So we'll be having that actually, I think come back to policy committee maybe, but then for next, but our board meeting at the end of April. We've got the maternity leave policy that is effectively just codifying what the law states that maternity leave should be providing. We were also looking at the possibility of offering a dependent care tax program that would allow you to provide money into like a account that the district would manage, and then and so the thing we're not entirely certain how much that would cost, but us to manage, and so the staff is going to look into that and bring that back to our next meeting.
Great.
And we were gonna look into other maternity leave going above the law what other districts do.
Do you call it maternity leave?
Paternal leave.
Paternity leave,
Parental leave.
Parental.
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 Yeah,
I'm getting
because I
the
don't
words
think we
mixed
call it
up.
maternal leave.
I forgot, I don't remember the word.
Yeah.
Parental leave.
Yeah, parental leave.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, we did have various discussion about trying to make the language more inclusive. That was actually the extent to which we had feedback on it, was to look into like whether it be removing some of the genderness and some of the pronouns,
Perfect.
making certain that it's supporting things like surrogates, things like that.
Perfect.
Excellent. Any other reports from standing ad hoc committees? All right, I don't see any. I'll move on to our report from district council.
Hello, everyone.
She's
Welcome
She's
to-
like,
You guys have had a lot of information, so I will spare you from any more.
Yay. Thank you.
I always enjoy winning information.
Thank you. And now a report from our general manager.
I've got a few things. You guys know since the last meeting, I was out for a bit on my other city college duties. So
Mhm.
it feels like a long time ago, but it was actually only 10 days ago when that all happened. So some updates for you. Our door hangers are going out next week for the Spring Festival. So those always, great to get our information out there. On the safety stations, I did speak with Kimberly from Park District yesterday about the ability of us to rent Green Park on an interim basis without a lot of process, but then needing more process and like negotiations for next fiscal year, but for, on a minimal level for starting ASAP with the third location for Greek Park. So we just talked yesterday. That's a change from before. Before we were not in that position. So we're gonna work with them on launching that soon. Also, good news on our public safety programs is we got the interpersonal violence report from 2 fiscal years ago. So they're ready to present it at our next meeting.
Great.
So yeah, we've made progress on public safety. With the STEP grant, things are continuing to move forward. I told you last time that KTUA had developed essentially like a list of problems that, are the summary problems of the existing conditions report. And on Thursday, we had like a charrette, but charrettes are usually for the public. This is just for us. But
Also known as a meeting.
Yeah, they call it a charrette. I don't know. That's what it was. That's the Google invite I got.
Oh, that's
Charrette.
very cute. They're planners. They talk in charrettes.
Yeah.
So we were workshopping something.
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
if- what
So
if we're
no, well, we were workshopping things.
It's a verb,
We
apparently.
were workshopping the different projects and solutions we'd want to present to the community. So would we make Embarcadero Del Mar and Del Norte the main driving roads that we encourage people to drive on?
Yeah.
Put signage towards those. We were pretty much talking through the problems and then talking through the solutions for them. The stop signs came up with the last board meetings, and we talked about where would stop signs be better and maybe which ones we would want to propose. Some you don't want them everywhere, or you can't have them everywhere. So we had a really good session where we're really starting to come up with the ideas of solving the issues in the plan. So that's exciting. And it ties into the parking study starting soon too.
Yeah.
The retreat, yes, we'll work on scheduling for the retreat. I'll send another email. We're just waiting until we talk about it in person today, and I'll send an email follow-up now. But besides that, things are good. Yeah, I have no other things to report.
Awesome. Thank you for that report. Our next regular meeting of the board of directors will take place on April 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on Zoom at the community room 970 Embarcadero Del Mar, Iowa, California. We have a motion to adjourn. All right. Motion by Doppler, second by Dessler. Jonathan, can I have a roll call vote? Director Aguilar? Yes. Director Topper?
Yes.
Yes. Director Dessler?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. The motion passes.